Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Keep Watching podcast, where we decide what to watch so you don't have to. I'm James,
And I'm Sarah.
and today we're going to be recapping our live viewing of WWE Raw is 30. Sarah,
Yeah.
how pumped are you about this?
I am a sleepy amount of pumped because I got home late last night from this thing.
Yes, we went to Philly to see Raw's 30th reunion episode. And Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
you don't actually watch wrestling. This is your first time ever.
Yeah, this was my first time watching the boys smash the other boys, and then also the ladies smashing the other ladies, and then sometimes there's a wizard, and yes.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to hear your experience of this.
But you have enjoyed the wrestling for a long-ish time?
Yeah. I've been seriously, or at least following regularly, the wrestling since 2008. So I'm not
Okay.
really like an OG. I know like tonight there was a bunch of WWE legends from the past, or last night I should say. And I don't have the nostalgia for many of them because I didn't really watch when they were actually on for a lot of them. And a
Right.
couple of them I saw, but like I didn't have their whole careers. I only caught the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not as big for me, but it is what it is. Some of them are good though, so we'll get to that.
Some of them I recognized, so that says something.
Yeah, that does say something. Yeah. Do you want to hear that? I might have told you this before. Do you want to hear the first match I ever saw, or it wasn't the first match I ever saw, but it was a match I randomly watched once that made me want to keep watching wrestling. You want to hear this
Your
story?
wrestling origin story?
Yeah, it's my
Yes,
wrestling
give
origin
it to
story.
me.
All right, 2000. I believe this was 2008. I could have the date. I could have the year wrong, but it was the year that the Undertaker was facing Batista on SmackDown.
Okay.
You're familiar with both these guys, actually.
Yes, because one of them's in a movie and the other one I've just heard of.
Yeah, Batista acts in movies now and is probably most known for Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
They were having a steel cage match, Sarah, which
Ooh.
we'll get to later. But steel cage match on SmackDown, so it wasn't even a pay-per-view. So that I don't think I got Raw on my television growing up.
Mm.
But I did get SmackDown at the time with whatever channel SmackDown was on at the time. And they were facing each other, and it was like, I was like, oh, cage match, that's interesting. And then it was like kind of what I expected. And then you didn't even get to see what a cage match is supposed to be, Sarah, because of what happened
Yeah,
last
shenanigans.
night. But an option of how to win a cage match is like you can climb over the top of the cage, and if you get your feet to the ground, you win.
Oh, you just escape?
If you can escape the cage, you also win the
Okay.
match. But you can also win normally as well.
Okay.
So the Undertaker Batista had this like epic back and forth match, and then at some point they both just decided like, fuck it, we're just gonna climb the cage and just see who can get out first. And they both like slowly, like, they didn't just like fall to the ground and win the match once they got over the top of the cage. They like carefully like climbed down to like pretty low, and then they like could see each other, and they somehow like indicated to each other to drop so that they hit the ground at the same time. But they definitely messed it up, and Undertaker hit the ground first. But then like I think at the time SmackDown was recorded. It wasn't live.
Oh, okay.
So on TV, what they did was they like the two camera shots of each wrestler individually. They put them side by side on the screen, and then they time sync them so that their feet hit the ground at the same time. Except in the background of the Undertaker's camera angle, you could see Batista on the other side of the ring, and like you could tell that Batista had not fallen as far as it indicated on his half of the screen, you know? And
Nice.
so Undertaker definitely hit the ground first. But Undertaker was the world champion at the time. And so it ended up being a tie, and then a tie goes like the champion retains the title in a tie.
Okay.
But it was like a brutal match. Undertaker might have been bleeding or whatever. So it didn't matter whether back then they did bleeding on purpose more often.
Oh.
But yeah, so Undertaker's like beat up pretty bad. He would have won anyway, even if shenanigans didn't happen. But then I was like, oh, that was a pretty interesting match. But then this big guy named Mark Henry, who used to hold the like They call him the world's strongest man because he used to hold some weightlifting record.
Okay.
He comes out and he just starts beating up the Undertaker even more.
Oh.
Like the cage has been lifted and he's just beating up the Undertaker even more. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Why isn't this episode of SmackDown ending? And then I had no idea what was this was at the time. And then after Mark Henry beats him up, then this guy Edge comes out and he has a briefcase.
Oh.
Which I had no idea what it was at the time, but apparently it was a contract that allowed him to face the champion for their title at any time. So this was Undertaker's like passed out on the mat. And he's like, "Yes, start the match." And then he like cashes in the Money in the Bank, and then he goes to pin him, and then the Undertaker kicks out. And it's like, yeah, but then he gets up, and then Edge hits him with his finisher, and then Edge wins the title. And I didn't even know who Edge was or any of these. I knew who the Undertaker was, but like I didn't know anything. But it was just like pure chaos, and I was like, I need to know why all this happened, and like I have no idea what I was watching, and it was so good.
It got you hooked.
I mean, it got me curious enough to dive deeper, and then I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm not obsessed with wrestling. Like I'm not watching every episode every week. I oftentimes don't watch SmackDown because I go play badminton on Fridays. So Friday nights. So I miss SmackDown a lot.
But you've gone like in person several times, right?
Yeah, me and my wife go a lot. So if they're in Philly and it's like it seems like it's gonna be big, we go. But yeah, this is gonna be fun. I just wanted to. I'm probably not going to be as hyped for these legend things, so that's why I only go back to 2008. So
yeah.
Anything else you want to preface before we get into the recap, Sarah?
I know so little about wrestling, so just be prepared for that.
Are you Are you glad to have gone?
Yeah, it was the time.
Okay. It was.
It was an interesting experience. I will say I don't think they hooked me the way they hooked you back in the day, but I do not regret going. I had fun, so there we go.
Yeah, we're also gonna watch the Royal Rumble, which is coming up on Saturday, and I think if you were going to get interested at all in wrestling, that's probably the best match to watch to get interested in. So we'll see if anything catches your eye in those matches at all. But yeah, so we went to the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia on January 23rd for the Raw 30th anniversary episode. And we're going to talk about what happened. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right? So for anybody that doesn't go, they also do these, they're not really dark matches because WWE does put these online, but they had main event. They call this, there's like a show called Main Event, which I've never watched before. But apparently they just basically film like a match or two before the actual like episodes of Raw and SmackDown start at the live events. So the first two things we actually saw like weren't part of Monday Night Raw.
This is a very confusing name for something that is not that important.
The WWE. Yeah, it's like trying to hype up the show by calling it the main event, but it's like the least main event.
Yes.
Yeah. Unless it's amazing and I've just never watched it, but nobody ever talks about it. I don't think like titles change hands unless the show has its own title, but nobody had a title that we were seeing.
Nope.
Yeah.
It didn't even get a lot of discourse between people. It was just a couple rounds of smashing.
Yes. So Sarah, like almost I gave Sarah like a 90-minute crash course before we went to see Raw live.
I tried to remember, but I'm not great with names. They didn't all stick.
I only covered the current storyline main characters, and I probably still didn't get them all. So Sarah knows nobody in the main event. This main event stuff is she gonna know?
Oh yeah.
But we're gonna have a fun time letting Sarah describe the people that fought. So there were two matches in the main event, Sarah. Well, who wrestled?
The first one was, I don't mean to be rude by saying this, but it was a cannonball on legs who came out. This man was very round and very large. And then a teeny little speedy guy came out, and they had a round of smashing.
Yeah.
And to no one's surprise, the cannonball won because he just, how's a little.
There's a little bit of a size discrepancy.
Yeah. But it was cute because he'd pick up the little guy and he'd kick his legs real fast, like a princess having a fit or something. And, that was fun.
Bronson Reed is the big guy. Akira
Uh-huh.
Tozawa is the small guy. Akira Tozawa, I do like him. I think he's actually pretty funny, and he's also good at losing. He's a
Oh
good.
yeah.
He's good at losing. So
He did a lot of good, oh no, I'm in so much pain faces while slowly
yeah,
rolling out of the ring, which is a thing I didn't know was going to be a thing that happens, which is just you lose and then you slowly try to get out
yeah,
of the camera's view.
yeah. He did a good job making Bronson Reed look good. That was his job in the match. So
Yeah.
good job, Akira. What was the second match, Sarah, in the main event?
This was two women, and one of them came out in I want to say a pirate coat without sleeves. And she was just very, very angry, or maybe supposed to be acting crazy. And there was a
Yeah,
lot of shaking her head around and yelling.
yeah,
And then there was another lady who's like, if I had to draw you a picture of what I thought a lady wrestler looked like she's the
yeah.
exact stereotypical picture. Like she's blonde and busty and like tight clothes. And I was like, yes, that is what a lady wrestler looks like. And then they did some smashing, and I think the angry lady won, right?
Yes, she
Yeah.
did. Nikki Cross is the angry lady, or I think she's just crazy. I don't
Oh,
know if
okay.
she's really angry. she's just, I think she's just going insane. Is her kind of deal.
Well, she was very aggressive, so I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
this is like her original persona. Like so, like WWE has this what I call it like the minor league system of WWE, where it's called NXT. And she when she was
Mm-hmm.
in NXT, she had this kind of like crazy, like losing her mind kind of gimmick.
Ah.
And then when she came up, she had it, but she was also like a good guy with it, so it was a little bit different. But then she eventually changed over. She started wearing like a superhero outfit, and she so since she was calling herself almost a superhero or something
Okay.
like that. Yeah. And they actually let her like win Money in the Bank, I think it was, and then she cashed in and won the championship for like a month until the next pay-per-view came up. So she had a good run as the
Hmm.
almost a superhero, Nikki Cross, at some point.
Nice, realistic goals. Almost a
Yes.
superhero.
Yeah. And yeah, Dana Brooke, I feel like she's good, but for whatever reason never has gotten a big push. She had a couple like funny bits through over the years that I liked, but she's never gotten a big opportunity, I feel like. But it was whatever. The match was whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know any of the storylines on main event.
Oh, yeah, I think they were like talking at each other, but you can't hear that when they're not like doing mic work or whatever. They're
Yeah.
just shouting at each other and I guess you can hear that on TV, but at the place you can't.
You haven't experienced the announcers yet because we don't get to hear the announcers live. You've only
Oh
seen
yeah, yeah. There were guys there talking about it, but I don't know
Yeah,
anything they
you'll
had to
get that
say.
on Saturday. Sarah will be coming to my house to watch it online, so
Hmm.
you'll get the whole TV experience when we do that. Okay, you ready to get into the actual Monday Night Raw episode?
Yes.
Okay. What I want to do at the beginning of this is just acknowledge all the legends that were in this episode
Okay.
that I feel like I should say their names on the podcast. For
And it just
completeness,
popped out for a bit, but didn't really do a thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say all these people came back for nostalgia purposes. There were people in the audience that were excited to see them. I was not super excited to see them. I would say they added no value to like the current storylines going on.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a few legends I feel like who did. So I'll save them for later. But here are the ones that just kind of popped out and did a thing. Some of them I don't even
Yes.
think were on TV. I think they only came out for us.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we saw Hulk Hogan, Jimmy
I
Hart.
knew who he was.
You know Hulk Hogan, yeah. Jimmy
Yeah.
Hart, Ric Flair, JBL, Ron Simmons, DDP Diamond Dallas Page, The $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and Alundra Blaze. Alundra Blaze, Sarah, the only
Uh-huh.
woman they brought back for this
Oh.
Raw is 30 event. I didn't even like put that together till later.
Huh.
They advertised that the Bella twins, who my wife really likes, the Bella twins,
Mm-hmm.
that they were going to be there, but my wife told me that she heard that they weren't even actually there. There was speculation that they were
Oh.
there, but then got like cut for time or something, maybe as part of the women's cage match, but I think they weren't
Hmm.
actually there. So I don't know what happened. They were part of the graphic, so they made us feel like they were going to be there,
Yeah.
but they weren't. But yeah, they only brought back one women wrestler, and this is like I feel like if you're celebrating Raw is 30, unfortunately, like you're gonna like be celebrating the past. And if you're celebrating the past in WWE, it's a little bit of like, okay, we're like back in the day, the women were definitely not getting time like the men were.
Yeah. Like, I was going to ask how recently that started, like when they started giving ladies their proper due in this whole situation.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how to put a date on it, but there was kind of like a revolution that I guess you could say the Bella Twins were part of, and a few of the women wrestlers that are still on the roster now. My wife and I went to like the first ever women's Royal Rumble, which was in Philly. So that probably around then is what I would say. I think that was like 2017, maybe.
Oh, so like the problem is most of the ladies are still active and they're not retired, so you can't bring them back, right?
Yeah, I mean, like they showed these like promos throughout the night of like the historical moments on Monday Night Raw, and they did show moments with women. Trish Stratus and Lita, they showed a match between them. So they did highlight some stuff throughout the history, but they weren't actually there. You know, so there are like women worth acknowledging, even like in the past. You know, like there were some good wrestling women, even in the days where women weren't getting time. But this whole like the fact that they only brought back Alundra Blaze and a women's match ended up getting cut short is what it seemed like.
Yeah,
and then the other women's match was poorly booked, in my opinion, and made it uninteresting, and it was kind of like the dull moment of the program.
Yeah.
It felt very I guess you could say it was nostalgic from that perspective to have the women's match be like, yeah, exactly. So it was a bad night for women's wrestling, unfortunately. We still got to see a few people.
Yeah.
One of them still made an impression. My favorite wrestler made an impression. So we'll talk about them as much as we can, as much as they allowed us to. But yeah, those are the legends that appeared that I thought nostalgia. They were there, but didn't add anything. We're good on them. I'm not going to mention when they came out or anything like that. Hogan opened the show, I'll say that. But all these people I mentioned earlier, like they didn't even get to go to the ring. They only got to come out on the stage and then they had to walk back. So the ones we're actually going to talk about they made it all the way to the ring.
And there were a fair number of them too. So there was a lot of folks from the past.
There was a big group of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready to get into the actual content worth talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Apparently, I didn't realize this was a thing. Apparently, the first hour of Monday Night Raw last night was commercial free on television.
Oh.
So that's why I think at one point, like in the first hour, I turned to you. I was like, I'm pretty sure, like when they go to commercial, like they show you commercials in the stadium. Because I remember that being a thing last time we went to Raw. But they're like, I don't know if they're the same commercials that you would see on TV or if they're just like WWE specific commercials. Or
they seem specific commercials.
Yeah. But I was like, oh, they haven't shown any commercials yet. Well, apparently they weren't showing anybody commercials. That's why.
Because they had serious business to get to.
Yeah. So we're going to start the show with the Bloodline, Sarah.
Yes.
The Bloodline. This is the main story in WWE, in my opinion.
These were a bunch of very serious boys.
You say that, but it's like the storyline is like serious, but like they are being like humorous still. Like it's like so silly, even though like they're being serious, but it's like, I don't know, it's still silly in a way that I like it. Like that's like the sweet spot for me is like, okay, you're being serious, but you're also acknowledging like the silliness of wrestling, you know, like that's like the sweet spot for me. Like if it's just serious people being serious, like that's not interesting to me.
When they walked in, it was serious though. Yeah. They were just like, ooh, we are dramatic. Yeah,
the Roman Reigns Bloodline entrance is so slow and milked. It's like amazing. It's a good atmosphere though when it's going on. All right. Do you want to try to explain the dynamics of the Bloodline, Sarah?
Okay.
I tried to explain it to you before we went. Let's see if you can do it.
There is one fancy guy who is in charge of this group of people.
Yes, Roman Reigns.
Yes, he's also sort of the cousin of The Rock in a extended family sort of way.
Samoan culture. Yeah. I don't know if it's blood, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, Roman Reigns, he is the only men's heavyweight champion right now because he has both of the world titles. He's referred to as the unified world champion or whatever since he has both titles. And he hasn't had both. He's had both titles for almost a year, and he's had at least one title for over 2 years. So he's been the champion a long ass time.
So he's earned his dramatic walk-in.
Yes, it was. I don't think his entrance was always that long. It gets longer the longer he's been champion.
And then he has a man who carries his belts and talks for him when he doesn't want to.
This is Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman is a a legend on the mic. He's so good. We'll get to Paul Heyman when he does his bit. Not Samoan. He's not Samoan.
Not Samoan.
And he's gonna be putting a guy on trial for not being part of the family.
Yes.
And he's also not part of the family. Here we go.
But then there are 3 more Samoan boys who are brothers, and 2 of them are twins, and they fight together as a team, I think.
The twins are a tag team, yes.
Yes.
And they have both the Raw and SmackDown tag team champions, so they're like the unified tag team champions. So the Bloodline has like almost all the titles you could possibly have in the
they
men's
are the
division.
Fanciest boys.
Yes.
And then they have this other guy who's, I don't know, a beardy white guy in a t-shirt who I just like. I think, were they all shirtless? I think they were. I don't know. They seemed bigger and musclier, and he seemed more like a normal guy in contrast.
I think the Usos, the tag team, they probably had like sleeveless shirts, if I had to guess.
But whatever they were wearing was tighter, and they just seemed a little bit musclier than this other boy. And he really just doesn't look like he belongs in this crew at all. Not just because he's not Samoan, but also just, I don't know. He gave me the vibe of he should just be home playing D&D, but I like to be home playing D&D, so maybe that's just me. But yeah, he was also there, but also in trouble for reasons that didn't seem real, but yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of out of nowhere. So even as they're entering, like Sami Zayn is kind of like, he's the extra bro.
Mm-hmm.
He's like kind of like slowly walking behind them, like he's not as in sync with them as he usually is on the entrance.
There's a tension.
There's a tension, yeah. So here's what it is. I like to track like speculation going into events before I watch them.
Mm-hmm.
What centers around all of this, weirdly enough, is that there have been rumors that The Rock is potentially coming back to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania.
He did not show up this time, though, and I was a little sad about that.
But the more likely spot that he would show up is the Royal Rumble on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like, maybe he shows up tonight, like even lower chance, but maybe he would show up. Yeah. So the last couple of weeks, the Bloodline has been kind of doing this, like hinting that The Rock could be coming back, like doing these subtle hints, but not like outright saying it, because I feel like, the WWE didn't even know if The Rock was the stuff with The Rock was going to work out. So they said last week was like, oh, everyone is going to show up and acknowledge Roman Reigns, because that's like Roman Reigns' thing. He's like, he tells people to acknowledge him. He's like,
yes, he did demand that after he got in the
Everybody
ring.
Loves that shit too. He was like, he says the city name, so he was like Philadelphia, and then he like pauses for like 30 seconds while everybody cheers that he said the city.
They said the city name.
Yeah, and then he's like, acknowledge me, and then everybody boos him after that. Except they like boo and not boo and also do his gag. Like it's a little weird.
Yeah, I got very confused about because there are people who are quote unquote bad guys and people who are good guys, and I don't know, everybody seemed to have a real good time with everybody, so I could not track who were bad guys or not.
For me, Roman Reigns is a heel, but I like him.
Okay.
Like ever since Sami Zayn got involved in this Bloodline story, I've loved it. So I'm in on Roman Reigns right now. But okay, so apparently what I was reading was there was supposed to be a Roman Reigns acknowledgement ceremony was what the segment was going to be called on this episode. But the day of, or whatever, it got reported that the acknowledgement ceremony was going to be replaced by a segment called The Trial of Sami Zayn, which is an amazing amazing alteration.
Very different vibe.
So it might have been in play. The speculation was that, okay, they're going to have an acknowledgement ceremony for Roman Reigns, but the only person in Roman Reigns' family that hasn't acknowledged him yet is The Rock. So it was speculation that like they maybe like more relatives of Roman Reigns and the Usos and these guys were going to show up and acknowledge Roman, and then maybe The Rock was going to show up and not acknowledge him or something like something was going to happen.
Yeah.
So either that fell through and the like maybe The Rock's not going to be involved at all, or they just decided not to do it tonight. They didn't do it on Raw. We'll see when it gets to the Rumble. But instead, they did this trial of Sami Zayn. And at least I watched SmackDown on Friday going into this. In every episode of SmackDown, Sami and Roman Reigns have like is Roman Reigns going to kick him out of the bloodline kind of vibe. But then by the end of every episode, it's like, okay, they're cool. Like kind of thing. And where we left off was, oh, they're cool again. And now we're starting Monday Night Raw with, okay, wait, Sami Zayn is on trial for something? Like, it was really out of nowhere, and I had no idea what this segment was going to be, but it ends up being amazing, in my opinion. I'll say that this trial of Sami Zayn going right into a tag team title defense with the Usos is, like, the best wrestling that I've watched in years. Like, it's so good. Now, I'm it's easy to be biased when you go see the event live because there's always more energy in the stadium than there is with however you're watching it by yourself or with one other person on TV. Sense. But to me, this felt really good. Not since, I would say like the best wrestling moment I can remember for people that are wrestling fans listening to this is, you'll like the name of this, Sarah. There was something called the Festival of Friendship with Kevin Owens, who you saw tonight, and Chris Jericho, who you did not see. That was an amazing wrestling moment. And they didn't wrestle in it. You know, people say, oh, it's not wrestling. They didn't wrestle. Well, it's part of the storytelling. It was incredible storytelling.
Okay.
So yeah. And that was back in 2017, I think.
Wow.
So it's been, I would say this is, you know, maybe the best segments of wrestling I've seen in 5 years. That's how good I thought this was.
I'll say up to this point in my vast wrestling watching career is the best wrestling I saw too. So there you go.
It was literally the first thing you saw. It was the best thing I've seen in 5 years.
I also saw a cannonball with legs thrown around a little guy. So
this is your first this is your first mic segment. So nobody talks on the main event on the mic. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the trial of Sami Zayn. This is amazing. Do you want to try to explain what's about to happen here, Sarah?
Yes. So the talkie guy, whose name I've already forgotten because I'm terrible with names.
Paul Heyman.
Yes. He seemed real angry at this boy, Sami. Is he always angry at him?
No. That's also why this is weird. Literally, the plotline on the Friday episode of SmackDown was like, Zayn thought Roman was mad at him, so he went to talk to him. And then he admitted that he was mad at him, and then Roman got mad at him, or he was mad at him for like not trusting him. And then Paul Heyman literally like was supposed to be the one that calmed Roman down and like got him to accept Sami back. So this is really coming out of nowhere that Paul Heyman all of a sudden is like, we have to kick Sami Zayn out of the bloodline. Like, it's really random.
Real worked up. And decided to be the prosecution in this case and brought forth some video evidence of times when Sami was, I don't know, setting up a betrayal or something. He said he was like secretly in league with some other wrestler man who I don't know who he was.
It's the guy that Roman is going to face on Saturday for the title. So
yeah.
And it is like in the history of their wrestling careers, Sami Zayn and this guy Kevin Owens have been like best friends in the past. So they have like a history together, which is why it kind of does make sense. But before we get to the prosecution exhibit videos, they had like exhibit A, exhibit B. It was so ridiculous and silly. It was so good. So a little bit of silliness with Paul Heyman here. Like, so Paul Heyman has a history with Philadelphia specifically because I think he was, I don't know the specifics of it, but he was part of the ECW brand that started in Philadelphia, a wrestling brand. that eventually got like bought, I think, by WWE or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
So whenever Paul Heyman shows up in Philadelphia, everybody starts chanting EC dub, EC dub, EC dub. So that's what they were doing, like right before he was going to start his segment. And then what's so silly is that like my wife and I went to Extreme Rules in Philadelphia like a few months ago, and there was he literally like had a promo that he made for Philadelphia. WWE knows that he can get the Philadelphia crowd like hype.
Oh yeah.
And then the promo was a long way of saying like how do you define extreme? And then he's like, I define it by Philadelphia, and then like the crowd goes crazy, you know, like it was like a very intense promo to get Philadelphia excited.
Yeah.
And now he's like supposed to be like only a few months later. Now he's like antagonizing the crowd of Philadelphia, where he's like he like acknowledged the ECW chants, but he was like he said to Roman, he was like, "Don't worry, that doesn't exist anymore." Like really trolling the fans. And then he did like a classic like mentioning of the local sports teams, yes, which was really funny because the Eagles are going to be facing the 49ers on Sunday for the NFC Championship. And you don't know this, but you didn't get this line at all, but it was like pretty amazing writing that Paul Heyman used to be the mic guy for a guy named Brock Lesnar, who we'll get to at the end of the show. And he always says his name like Brock Lesnar, like in a really intense way. And the quarterback for the 49ers, his name is Brock Purdy. So he like gave this whole big thing like he normally does for Brock Lesnar, but he said Brock Purdy is going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. It was like, it's such a weird like coincidence of names that they actually used for the like the 1 week of time that you could make that joke.
It was relevant.
It was pretty good. So Heyman's incredible on the mic, and he's about to literally just like pretend to be a prosecution lawyer in this like super silly trial. And I can't say he's ever done this in his life before, but he does a really good job.
Yeah.
And his evidence is like so bad too. It's so silly.
Yeah, it's just like somebody came to beat up the twins or something, and Sammy like didn't stop them or like was in the background not getting involved, and it was like, see,
and the guy might have had like a sword too. Like you can understandably run away from the guy with like a sword. Yeah. These clips are from like months ago, Sarah. Like they're so far ago, like long ago. Like the one you said he's just like running away from a fight. And then there's another one where they won a big match together as the Bloodline, like all 5 of them. And then Sammy like climbed on top of the cage and he was like celebrating, and then he threw up like some hand signal that I'm not familiar enough to know what it is, but it's like not related to the Bloodline. And I'm pretty sure like it meant nothing to the storyline at the time, but now like Paul Heyman is like using it as evidence that like Sami Zayn is like in cahoots with Kevin Owens, like because he's throwing up these hand signals.
Yeah, he just looked like he was happy and having a good time.
And then so I think there was 4 exhibit videos that they played. But then it got to the last one, and the last one was just Sami Zayn doing like he's basically hyping up the Bloodline and how like no one's ever gonna beat us, like kind of generic moment. And in this like hyped phase of like telling everybody how great the Bloodline is, he like accidentally like grazes by Roman Reigns' arm and like bumps into him slightly.
Such a teeny bump.
And this shit happened like months ago. And now, like, he's bringing it to the table as evidence for why Sami Zayn
like assaulting the
he's
king
like,
or something.
He's assaulted the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. It was so like as soon as they played this and Heyman was calling it like assault and battery or whatever the fuck he was saying, I was like, okay, this whole segment is now a joke, and I love it. Like this is so good, so good. How are you feeling watching this, Sarah?
This was very silly, but I was enjoying it. Yes.
Yeah. But what was amazing about these video packages is like, if you've never watched a Bloodline before, they pretty much summed up the entire storyline that you need to know going into
Mm-hmm.
what they call this the road to WrestleMania season, like from the Royal Rumble to WrestleMania for the next month, 2 months and 2.5 months, something like that, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So these are pretty good, just like catch up on the storyline kind of videos. These are pretty
Mm-hmm.
good. Yeah. Then
So
Paul Heyman
then,
rests the
yes.
prosecution rests. This is so ridiculous.
And Sammy does a thing where he's just very, very hurt and sad by all this, so he's not gonna even defend himself.
Yeah.
It's very all the feels.
Yeah.
At least as far as wrestling feels go, I guess.
Okay, even before Paul Heyman started talking, when they all got in the ring and sat down, the crowd is already chanting Sami Zayn's name.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is the biggest cheer spot of the night, and nothing has even happened yet. It's just like everybody like does what I do, where they look at like what the segments are going to be, and like everybody knew that this was going to be the trial of Sami Zayn, even though they didn't advertise it for it at all. And then when Sammy got to talk, everybody chanted his name again, and it was like the crowd was like so into this this trial of Sami Zayn.
Yeah, I even saw a sign that's like Sammy is innocent, not that anybody knew what he was accused of.
Exactly. Nobody, they didn't set this up at all, but everybody knew what was going to happen. Yeah, so Sammy's like, I have no defense. And then I liked this, like Roman actually talked. Like he does actually talk. It's not like when Heyman was with Lesnar, like Lesnar like almost never talked.
Mm-hmm.
Reigns does talk, but Reigns like this is a goofy ass segment for the unified world heavyweight championship to be involved in. But he like so I liked Roman in this segment because he like is getting into the segment by being like, what do you mean? Like you're gonna disrespect me by not even having a defense? Like what was the point of you being in this group all along if you didn't even care? Like I don't know. I don't even know what exactly he said, but the fact that the World Heavyweight Championship is involved in this silly scene is just so good to me. Yeah. So what happened?
Then the extra boy, who is not the twins but is the brother of the twins, was gonna, I guess, execute Sammy or something.
Roman is like, Solo, take care of him. And then Solo's move is like he has like his one fist is like it's taped up so that his like thumb is like really sticking out. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
And then his like move is that he just like slams his fist in your chest, basically.
Oh, so he was setting up that. Okay.
He was just gonna do his finishing move, which would have been painful, I guess, but it was not gonna actually. It wasn't executing him.
Well, I don't know. It's a trial. It seemed dramatic at the time.
I see why you thought what you thought you did. So Zayn is just sitting in his like desk chair that they all have, and he's just like sitting there willing to take this punishment of like a it looks like he's gonna get a spike to the chest. That's what it looks like he's gonna get. And Solo goes to like swing, and then one of the Usos, Jey Uso, jumps over to the other side of the table and grabs his arm to stop him. And everybody was like, "Oh my god, Jey stopped him!" Like the crowd was so into this moment. In the arena. Yeah, and I was like, I actually missed. I was looking at like the screen for this part because we didn't have the right angle to see Sammy as what good. So I missed like if I had been watching the ring, I would have seen Jimmy like get up, and it would have been like probably better to have seen it that way. But I only saw the TV version of it since I was looking at the screen. But yeah, the crowd was like, "Oh my!" Like at this moment, in this moment when he stops Solo, like this is very like he's going against his cousin Roman Reigns, and it's like, okay, what is about to happen in this segment is like the big mystery now.
But he does real quick turn it around. He's like, all due respect and whatever, but this is the good bro. And then he has his own video evidence of all the times Sammy was a good bro.
Yeah, Jey Uso put in some work and put together a defense exhibit video package. Which is just a really silly thought that he spent the time putting together a video package. It's a defense Sami Zayn. It's so silly. Oh, this is so good. And then this was just like moments that happened that it was just like, oh, Sammy, like actually helped the bloodline in a lot of different ways throughout the way,
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So there's not really anything to like really specifically talk about. But I like when we were watching these, I was like, this isn't really like convincing though, because they could just say like, oh, you just did this to get on our side to then betray us later. So that's what I thought this was going, but it actually doesn't end up going that way.
I mean, to be fair, the prosecution evidence also seemed like a big nothing burger.
So. Oh, yeah. But if you were going to decide that prosecution evidence was good,
yeah,
you could just be like, well, your evidence is just like, you just were trying to get on the inside so that you could tear us apart or whatever he's being accused of.
Right.
Yeah. It's so ridiculous. Oh, my God.
And then the tribal chief says he's not guilty, but he's gotta like get his shit together or something. Like,
yeah, he actually was like, I rule you not guilty. And then everybody cheered. Then he was like, for now. And then everybody's like, no. And I want to say, like, when like Jey Uso has a really good mic moment, like after the video package, talking about how like he thinks like Sami Zayn is a brother to him and whatever. Like,
oh yeah,
and like they really sold this. Like Jay and Sammy were really good here. Like they both looked like they were about to like cry. like it actually felt emotional, which is like
it was a cute friendship moment.
It was a cute friendship moment. I'm telling you, the festivals of friendships, that's where the good wrestling is at. Yeah, so he's not guilty for now. And then the mystery is he says, Sammy, you're gonna stay here on Raw tonight and handle the business for the bloodline, and then I don't want to see you again until the Royal Rumble on Saturday. So he doesn't want Sammy to be on SmackDown, which is SmackDown is the show that Roman Reigns is usually on. This is like a special. He comes on Raw sometimes, but he's always on SmackDown. But he doesn't want Sammy to be on SmackDown. So I assume Sammy is going to be on SmackDown. And it's just going to be a thing that he's not supposed to be there, but he's going to be there. So I'm interested to watch SmackDown now since he's not supposed to be there. But we'll see. Yeah. So that ended the trial of Sami Zayn.
Yes.
That was the first wrestling segment you've ever watched, Sarah. That wasn't a match.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. There was no context for like how good it is though. It's like if you watch if like your only experience of watching something was like, oh, you just watched the best thing of all time.
Like this is what I expect always now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. I guess it was downhill from here, but it was it started at the top of the hill.
But then it was time for some fighting.
Yeah. The advertised match for the night was the Usos would be defending the tag titles against the Judgment Day. And what's interesting about this, though, is that usually the Usos defend the unified titles, which is to say they defend both belts at the same time. So if they would lose both belts. But for whatever reason, they decided that this match would be only for the Raw titles, which it makes it seem like you would think like, oh, that makes the match less intense because it's not for as many titles. But it actually makes it more interesting because it makes it so like, oh, the Usos could lose and they could still be the SmackDown champions. So it's like, oh, wait, are the Usos actually going to lose this match? Whereas before you're like, there's no way they're losing both titles.
Right. Yeah.
So once we realized that this was only for the Raw titles, this match actually got really interesting. But Judgment Day comes out. You want to describe Judgment Day?
They are 3 goth boys and a hot goth girl. And there's a tall one who is always wet. And
he does the wet or oil look when he comes out of the.
He's got long hair. That was like whenever he'd do a move or something, it would flip and like I would just see water or whatever go off of it, and I don't know. He was just wet the whole time.
Yeah, a lot of wrestlers like wet or oil their hair like right before they come out so that their hair doesn't get like frizzy when they're in the middle of a match, kind of thing. Damian Priest is this taller guy on Judgment Day. That's his name.
So it was him and then one of the other shorter guys who were gonna team up against these twins.
He's tagging with Dominic Mysterio, who's actually the son of WWE legend Rey Mysterio, active legend Rey Mysterio. And then they have another guy, Finn Balor, in their group, and then Rhea Ripley, who is one of the favorites for the Royal Rumble, the Women's Royal Rumble, is part of this group.
She seemed really cool. I don't
Oh,
know.
you like, okay. All right. I hope, well, I got it. You'll be interested in the Rumble then.
I like a strong lady with a bold lip color. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I can guarantee you she'll be in the Rumble and probably at least do well.
Okay,
And
nice.
maybe win. That's where we're at with Rhea Ripley right now.
Cool.
But she's just gonna be at ringside for this match.
Yes. And then the Usos, see, I'm remembering names, had Sammy hanging out with them.
Yeah, this was the business he had to take care of. He had to help. He had to be there for the Usos to help them try to retain the titles.
Which to begin with just seems like the side people just like yell at each other a lot until shenanigans break loose and then they just start misbehaving because I don't think there are any actual rules.
Well, they're looking for an opportunity for the ref to not be paying attention so that they can do it, even though there's cameras filming everything and you think they could like do you think they could disqualify people for getting caught on camera? But no, you have to be caught by the one referee that's in the ring in order to be disqualified. That's what these people on the side are there to do.
Yes, cause a ruckus.
The Usos are good pretty much always, so this is like a normal good Usos match, but it's like it feels kind of normal, other than the fact that it's only for the Raw title, so you're like, okay, maybe they're actually going to lose. But then at some point, Jey Uso dives over the top rope and onto Damian Priest on the outside. And it looked pretty clean. It looked like a good dive, right, Sarah? You didn't think anything
I
of
mean,
this.
I don't know.
You don't
Sure,
know?
he did a wrestling move. I don't know.
So then he stands up and he tries to like do the normal thing where you like throw the guy back in the ring under the bottom rope. And he like can't stand up enough to throw him, and like Damian falls short, and then Jey Uso goes down, and then he's like grabbing his leg, and almost immediately the referee puts his hands up into an X shape. And that's like the known signal for like, okay, this guy's legitimately hurt and can't continue the match. Like that's like actually the signal they use. So immediately everybody's was like, oh no, like they know what this means when they put the X up. Now it has been used fake in the past, you know, because like they know that we know what that means. So they'll do it as part of the story. But usually I think if they're doing a fake injury, they don't put the X up and then they have people come out, and that's kind of how you know. Yeah. It's definitely not real. But this time they said, you know what? We're all in. We're using the X. And I was like, crap, this really sucks that he got hurt. But then Adam Pearce comes out, Sarah. And this guy is like the fake, he's like the TV guy that makes the matches, but he doesn't actually make the matches. You know, the actual behind the scenes people are booking the matches, but he's like the general manager of Raw or whatever. And he comes out, and I'm like, okay, good. If he's out here, that's probably means it's not real.
It's a fake injury. Yeah.
It's a fake injury. Thank God. And you want to try to explain what happens here, Sarah?
Well, they decide that he cannot continue, and that means that they'll forfeit and they're going to lose their fancy title. Yeah. But Sammy's there, and he's like, but wait, what if I did the wrestling? And then that's fine. And then everybody agrees that's fine, and so he does the wrestling.
Yeah, apparently I didn't miss I missed this segment of Raw. Apparently, like last week or a few weeks ago, like the Judgment Day was in like a tag team tournament, and they actually had this exact same scenario happen. And I don't know if they were setting up for this like a week later or what they were doing, but this ruling actually was like deemed to be fair because he did the same thing for the Judgment Day like a week earlier. Yeah. Which I was not aware of until I read some stuff later, because it seems like totally unfair to be like, oh yeah, you could totally just sub a guy in. Even though like one of the greatest tag teams of all time in WWE had like 3 people in it that just like rotated which guys they used depending on what like the day, which also doesn't seem fair.
Seems like all the rules are shenanigans. Yeah, so whatever.
It's whatever works for the story. So at this point, as soon as Sammy comes over and is in it, everybody's like back in focus mode. They're like, okay, like Jay's not hurt, and everybody's going, wait. They're like, wait, Sammy can sub, and everybody's going crazy and chanting Sami Zayn again, Sammy, and yeah, they rule that he can replace in the match. And then the rest of this match, everybody's standing the whole time.
Well, it was, I mean, even from my limited perspective, it seems like tense. Like if they lose it, then Sammy's gonna be in big trouble, right? Like,
yeah, see, that's the one angle. the one angle is they lose, right? And now he kind of like failed his test or whatever Roman wants him to do. But even helping them win is also an interesting way because now he's like proven himself even further. So it's like it's I don't even as like a fan of whatever the story is here. Like I don't even know what really you're rooting for, but you're just like happy with no matter what happens. This is a good story, which is pretty incredible. Like I think that's pretty rare that like a story's gonna feel good no matter how the outcome of the match is. And like people really thought that Sammy was going to sub in and potentially lose the titles here. Yeah, like that's what the crowd was probably hoping for almost, even though they're rooting for Sammy, like they wanted him to lose this match because it would make the storyline way more interesting.
Right. Well, and to not get ahead of things, but you told me about the like odds for the Rumble next week or whatever, and like he's pretty up there in terms of potential winning.
Yeah, one of the guys that could win, yeah.
And then that means he has to fight the fancy man, right? And then that would be a whole bunch of tension too. So maybe, this is a path to just go fuck it. Sure, I will fight the fancy man. I don't know.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah. We're going to do Royal Rumble predictions towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
I will be mentioning, like, I like to track, like, the betting odds since the Royal Rumble is something you're allowed to bet on in, like, Vegas and stuff. They actually have betting
so silly.
Yeah. They have betting odds for who's going to win the Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, nobody's really, like, the top guys might be listed at, like, a 50% chance of winning. So they're not 100% spoiling the outcome.
Yeah.
But it does kind of give you an idea of where people are betting and think it's going to happen, and potentially any insider information that Vegas might have for whatever the creative team is deciding.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, they could literally have, like, the day of the Rumble be like, we changed our minds, like, this person's going to win now. Like, they could do that if they want to. And there's some interesting, especially in the men's Rumble, there's some interesting options that could be happening on Saturday. So, but we'll talk about the end, because I don't want to, if people don't want to be spoiled necessarily.
Yeah, fair.
I'll get into the specifics of which people have what odds at the end of the podcast. But yeah, Sammy's going to wrestle with Jimmy Uso for the remainder of this match. Amazing match. Multiple spots where you thought, oh, wait, this could be a pin for the win. And Sammy kicks out, I think, multiple times. And then I think the finishing move they pulled off, Sarah, was this move called the 3D, if I remember correctly, which is like a move that this famous tag team did that I think was also part of ECW, so might have had some history in Philly. So I actually didn't put that together till later. So they did like a finishing move that like wasn't their finishing move. So Sammy and Jimmy Uso do pull off the victory and retain the Raw titles, and keeps the tension, Sarah. It keeps the tension.
Yep.
Of the Roman Reigns Sammy bloodline plot. It's so good. They've been able to keep this tension going for a long ass time.
Yeah.
Amazing. This was at least like the first 45 minutes.
Oh yeah,
of the show.
Was quite a long time.
And people speculated that this ran longer than it was supposed to. Do you want to mention the guys that were sitting behind us?
Oh yeah. They were very pumped. Yeah. And every time there would be a like one of those flashback videos or whatever, they'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that happened on October 3rd, 1997 or whatever. And I'm like, wow, that's a encyclopedic memory of wrestling events.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, I was there for that, and I was there for that. And then at one point they were talking about yeah, I'm gonna go to like every SummerSlam no matter what now.
Are there quite a lot of them? Or do they mean
once
every
a year? SummerSlam is once a year, yeah. And then, but they were like, but the Rumble, maybe not everyone. I don't know. I didn't fully understand it. They were just loud and we could hear them because we were right in front of them.
Yeah.
I appreciated them because they were really into it, and I like that vibe when I go. One guy, I think one of them even was like, well, when DX was facing the Brothers of Destruction, which is like the Undertaker and his TV brother Kane, at Crown Jewel, which is actually a pay-per-view that they do in Saudi Arabia. He was like, oh, I kind of wanted to go. He was like, I looked into it. I was like, Jesus, dude, you're gonna go to Saudi Arabia for that match?
They were
the
super fans,
dude.
yeah.
Oh my god. And then later in the night, we'll get to it. They multiple times, but later during one of the slower matches, people were doing the EAGLES Eagles chant.
Yes.
And then the guy behind me was like, one of those guys behind it was like, man, I hate that chant so much. And then I slowly figured out throughout the night that he was a Giants fan.
Yes.
Who the Eagles had just beat that previous or two. It was
Saturday.
two days ago. It was 2 days
Yeah.
ago. The Eagles just like crushed the Giants. So he was
was very sad.
but he wasn't sad enough to not drive down to Philly. I don't know where he was coming from, but he was willing to go to an event in Philly,
Yeah.
even though. But yeah, he was getting a little grump during the Eagles chant. Oh, I love watching some of the fans when we're there too.
Mm.
We also had a guy that was like decked out like Macho Man Randy Savage
Yes.
in front of us with like a
Which is
white and
why you
purple-
ended up on TV a bunch.
Yeah, and he had like he must have had like 7+ signs
Yeah.
that he held up for different people, and I'm assuming I was on TV at least like 1 or 2 times because this guy was like an easy go-to in the audience guy. He was
Yeah.
like 1 row in front of us. So maybe I'll go back and try to find that someday. Where else? Okay, we just finished the trial of Sami Zayn and the match.
Yes.
Amazing wrestling. Again.
Yes.
Hard to keep this high going for the rest of the night. We're already 45 minutes into Raw, though. Do you know what the next segment was, Sarah?
Is this the Spooky Boy segment?
Yes. It didn't start out that way, but yes.
Oh, well, how did it start out?
Okay, so I don't know if this was the point that they started going to commercials. Like maybe this was an hour in. It was hard to tell if it was commercial free for the first.
Mm.
I think they must have gone to some video package. Like it wasn't a commercial, but they went away from the live ring.
Yeah.
Because the lights were out, and the next thing we knew, well, we could see him, but L.A. Knight, who was arrested. I think this was his first time being on Raw, actually. But he's like, I've only seen this guy like 3 times because I haven't been watching SmackDown. But every time I see him, I'm like, okay, this guy's pretty good on the mic. Like I have not seen him wrestle yet, but he's pretty good on the mic. And he's in a feud with Bray Wyatt. Do you want to try to explain who or what a Bray Wyatt is?
Okay. To my understanding, he's a spooky swamp wizard.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if he's a wizard.
Or he has a character who is a wizard. He also has a creepy
It's
children's
hard to say.
show
Yeah,
with creepy puppet things.
he does.
And sometimes he has a ghost friend that possesses a lady? Maybe.
Yeah, a ghost sister, I guess.
Okay. There you go.
And he has
You
something
showed
called
me. Oh, go ahead.
he has something called an Uncle Howdy, which again I haven't watched
Yeah.
SmackDown, so I'm only vaguely understand what it is, and it's apparently not him, which I'm confused by. I'm with Bray Wyatt. I don't fully get it, but I do enjoy that everybody really likes him.
Oh, yeah. Everybody seems super into it. You showed me a video of him doing a thing, and like there were whatever his spooky puppets were, like real people dressed up like them in the
Yeah.
crowd, like as part of the production, not like fan dressing up. And he was singing a hymn real slow and creepy like. And I did not enjoy the spooky swamp wizard video that you sent me. He's too spooky for me. But he's got a lantern and a creepy mask sometimes.
Yeah, he came back in Philadelphia at Extreme Rules, and that's the video I showed you. Was just like
Mhm.
the pay-per-view just ended with, oh, Bray Wyatt's back, and then he like came out with his lantern, and his creepy guys were in the audience, and then he blew his lantern out, and that was the end of the pay-per-view. Yeah, I don't fully get Bray Wyatt. I enjoy everybody's enthusiasm for Bray Wyatt. I don't know if his characters and his stories actually make sense. I can't follow them. Maybe there's like a somebody that could actually explain the true story of the Bray Wyatt and his family and his alter egos and his
Mhm.
puppets and what's going on in his head and whatever's going on. I can't explain it, unfortunately.
I
But
do appreciate that he seems to be trying to do a unique thing in the medium.
yeah, it is very different. And I think that's why people like it so much. It's just like, this is not something that we usually get to see in wrestling. Like, it is so far removed from tough guy being like, I'm tougher than other tough guy, and now we're gonna fight like basic ass shit.
Mhm.
So I also appreciate it from that standpoint that it is something different and it's not that stuff.
Going into the evening, he is what I was most concerned about because I didn't know exactly where his seats were. And if we were on the edge and some sort of spooky puppet person showed up near me, I was going to be a little startled and not enjoy that. But that didn't happen. We were in the middle of a row, so it was fine. Yeah. But going into it, he was my biggest concern.
Yeah, we were in the middle of our row, so we never had to get up for anybody that had to leave. And then where we sat this is good advice. I think we're in like the sweet spot of where you want to sit, because my wife and I, we like progressively got closer and closer every time we would go to an event until
you got too close.
Yeah, until at Extreme Rules last year we went and we weren't on the floor seats, but we were on the first row of the stadium seating.
Okay.
And the first floor of the stadium seating was low enough that even if you stood up, because everybody in the floor seating is also standing up, like you couldn't really see the wrestlers as they were entering. So, and entrances are kind of like some of the coolest part of the show. Yeah. So I thought that was actually like we got too close.
And you also couldn't see the screen from that angle, right?
We couldn't see, the overhead like center of the arena screen. Yeah. So there were times that like everybody'd stand up and like if people were fighting on the outside of the ring, like you couldn't see them from being that close. So unless you were going to get like floor seating all the way in the first row so that like you basically have nobody in front of you, like I feel like you have to go that close to not actually make your seats worse. So where we sat was like 10 rows up in the stadium seating, which I think is like the perfect spot.
Yeah, we had a good like overhead enough view, but it was still close. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're close enough to the action that you feel like you're part of it, but yeah, you're not too close that you're missing out on anything. You still get to see everything. So it's still like a little pricey to be in the first level, but it's not as pricey as going all the way to the floor. That's like crazy expensive. Yeah. So I think that's the sweet spot if you are trying to go to these events.
We were on the back side, I guess, so like the camera's face towards where we were sitting, so we would just see like people's butts when they're talking, and doing mic stuff and talking to the camera, but that's fine.
Yeah, we actually looked into getting seats on the other side so that you actually get the TV view, which is probably the best. Like if you got where we were sitting on the opposite side, that's probably actually the best seats, but I feel like those seats like sell out or they're just like more expensive.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
something.
They are.
I never really thought about them being more expensive, but I think they actually are more sought after just because they are the TV angle, which is the angle that the wrestlers will like face to do their promotions and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're losing out that much by being on the other side. I think it's worth the price drop.
And you can still like see the overhead screen, like in cases where you really want to see the camera view.
Yeah. So yeah, this LA Knight guy, he comes out and he's doing his he's basically just been calling out Bray Wyatt. Like that's basically his stick he's been doing. Because weirdly, like Bray Wyatt doesn't wrestle that often, but he just cuts these like creepy promos on the screen. Or he'll come out and do a promo. He pretty much only wrestles at pay-per-views kind of deal. So if you're in a feud with him, you're also not really wrestling unless you just wrestle a random guy and win just to like build yourself up a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But so LA Knight has also just been like cutting promos and then getting interrupted by Bray Wyatt. Like that's kind of the angle.
Okay.
But here, instead LA Knight is like saying like, oh, Bray Wyatt is scared to like come to the ring, and I know there's a bunch of like WWE legends in that locker room right now who are also scared, so I challenge any one of them to come out here and like talk to me face to face. I don't know what it was, something like that. And I looked in advance, so I thought I was pretty sure I knew who this was going to be. And what happened, Sarah?
There was a spooky moon thing.
A big gong sound is like the start of this,
And then that went on for a moment, but then it got really loud and it had flames. Like a motorcycle theme. Yeah.
And like flames came out of the side and you could feel the heat. We were close enough to feel the heat of the flames. Yeah.
And I don't know, it said American Badass on it, which really didn't mean anything to me.
Yes. But this is The Undertaker.
Which I have heard of, but I did not know he was also a motorcycle badass person. I thought he was just a spooky man.
Yeah, so the rumors for this were like 100% accurate. Like people, there was like the story was that the Undertaker would be part of a segment with LA Knight and Bray Wyatt, and somehow somebody found out that they didn't give the Undertaker his dead man. They call it his dead man gear, where he wears like a black trench coat and like a hat, and he looks like an Undertaker basically.
He's a spooky man. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is his like American badass attire that he wore for the middle part of his career. So this is the guy that I told you. My cousin, who's a wrestler, refers to the Undertaker as a wizard, like a wrestling wizard.
Yeah.
Because he can like summon lightning and like turn the lights on and off. So we didn't get the wizard version of the Undertaker entrance. We got the motorcycle entrance, which is a little goofy.
On a motorcycle.
Like it was like really cool, I guess, in whatever time period that he did this for. Like the 90s. I don't know what time period that he did this for. It's a little goofy seeing like a grown man like kind of like
inch the motorcycle around
the ring. Yeah. It's a little goofy, but like to me there's real nostalgia with the Undertaker.
Okay.
Where this is cool, and the Undertaker is being allowed to go to the ring because he's actually gonna do something useful. I would say in terms of the helping out the current wrestlers.
Well, he didn't like say anything, right? He just stood there like menacingly, and the other guy got real
That's
spooked.
all he has to do. Yeah, the other guy, LA Knight, was like, I heard what you said on some podcast about how everybody in the locker room is softer these days or something. And he's like, and LA Knight's like, I agree with you, but that I know you're not talking about me when you say that. And then he acts like he's gonna fight the Undertaker. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do you a favor, and I'm not gonna beat you up to the Undertaker. And then he like tries to leave and run away.
But he like backs into the spooky swamp wizard guy.
Yeah, the lights go out, and then it's Bray Wyatt comes out, and it's just like normal form Bray Wyatt too. Like he has his lantern, but he's not wearing any of his like alter ego masks or anything like that. So you only had to see the most normal Bray Wyatt version.
Yeah, I got lucky. I didn't have to go to Spooky Town too much.
So LA Knight basically has to choose if he wants. He's like caught in between Bray Wyatt and the Undertaker.
It's a spooky sandwich.
It's a spooky sandwich. Yeah. So he's backing away from Bray Wyatt, and then he eventually has to go like back in the ring, and then the Undertaker grabs him by the neck he does a choke slam is one of his moves. That's what he's kind of setting up for. But then the Wyatt gets in the ring and just kind of stands there, and then the Undertaker decides to like throw LA Knight, like toss him over to Bray Wyatt so Bray Wyatt can do his finisher instead. And that's what happens. His finisher is called Sister Abigail, by the way, which is also the name
that's
of
the spooky ghost that possesses people, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But then the like Undertaker whispers some wizard secrets to him or something. And then leaves. I don't know.
The Undertaker never said anything to him, Mike. He just like he could have literally said nothing to him, but the idea is that like the Undertaker is giving Bray Wyatt the like thumbs up of approval and like, you know, trying to pass Bray Wyatt his whatever
spooky
reputation
torch
the Undertaker has to like give him Bray Wyatt the credentials or
he's the new spooky man, and he's been approved by the old spooky man.
It's definitely different. Like as much as like the Undertaker was a wizard, like the complexity of his stories and his characters were not as complicated as whatever Bray Wyatt is trying to do. But yeah, this is how you use a WWE legend. This is actual. Undertaker has value and can pass it along. It was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
You get it.
Yeah.
You get what they're
going
for. Yeah. So LA Knight and Bray Wyatt though, at the Rumble on Saturday, they're having something called a pitch black match.
But that's just because it's sponsored by Mountain Dew and their weird drink.
Yeah, it's like actually like the Mountain Dew pitch black match, but they just call it the pitch match. They just say the pitch black match, but in the graphic you can see the Mountain Dew logo. But literally the WWE. I don't even know if WWE has decided what this match is going to be yet, because they have not released any details as to what this means. Like, this is not a match type that has ever been done before. So, yeah, I don't know what this is going to be, but we'll see. I'm going to make a prediction for every match that's scheduled for the Rumble when we get to the end. Some of these are very obvious, I think.
Well, not to me.
Yeah. Well, I think you could get them right. I mean, I kind of told you my thoughts already, which you can probably help you. But all right, let's get to the next match. What's the next match there?
Okay, so
what was supposed to be the next match?
Yeah, they advertised there was going to be a cage match.
A steel cage match.
Is there a non-steel cage match variant?
No, there's not.
Okay.
Well, there's multiple different kinds of cages, but this is the traditional steel cage match. Yeah.
And this was supposed to be Bailey, who you told me about.
Yeah.
And some lady who's called the Man, and everybody likes her because she really got punched once.
Yeah. That was the bit that kind of set up for this match, where Bailey called her out for like, oh, people call you the Man because you got punched in the face by a woman. Or something like that. Yeah. They actually had like a really deep historical promotion, like talking about like, oh, when you got called up to the roster from NXT, like they left me behind and you took my spot. Like, kind of like they really got deep into like the history of things.
Well,
that if we were there last night, you would have not have followed any of that. But yeah, Bailey is probably my favorite wrestler right now. I'm really into Sami Zayn right now with their story, but Bailey has been like the most consistent wrestler that I've always liked.
I enjoyed the stuff you showed me of her old like entrance with the wiggly dudes, where she looked like an 80s teen at the mall.
The wacky waving inflatable arm waving tube man. Yeah. And
then the time that she stabbed them all when she looked like an angry soccer mom. That was also amusing. So
she murdered her Bailey buddies.
Yes. Yeah. She's a name I actually remember. But so like the cage thing came down, and I think like they must not have been showing what was going on, because she came out and was like going around and just like yelling at people for a while, like in the crowd, like doing a lot of crowd interaction.
This might have been the first commercial break of the night.
Yeah.
And so like Bailey came out, and then I think they probably cut to commercial like after she got like started walking towards the ring. And then she had like, we got to watch her have like of really long interactions of just like yelling at the fans.
My favorite moment of the night was there were these two small children that were sitting in the front. They're two girls, and she just went up to them in their face and booed them and like did a thumbs down at them, and it was hilarious. I thoroughly enjoyed her booing these children.
She also tried to grab, somebody had a sign like in the front row of the entrance, and she tried to like grab it at one point, and then she kept walking. And then she walked forward a few steps, and then she quickly turned around again and grabbed the sign and ripped it in half. And I don't know if these, like, she does sign rips a lot, I think. I don't know if they're plants or just, like, at this point, people know, like, I'm going to bring a sign so Bailey can rip my sign up. I think she's ripping people's real signs that they bring.
Yeah.
But it's great to watch. And then she was, like, she got in, like, the ring, and I think it was still in commercial break, and she was, like, she was like sticking her arm through the fence and pointing directly at somebody, and she was like, hey, you right there, like, you're an idiot right there. you were an idiot.
Yeah, she was having a good time, it looked like.
Yeah.
And she's got two minion ladies. Were they out at this point?
They came out. I'm assuming they came out on live TV and during the entrance, because they're part of a faction or whatever called Damage Control, the three of them. They came out, but then they went backstage, and Bailey came out by herself, because it's supposed to be a cage match, so it's like no one can really help you because you're in the cage is the idea.
Yeah.
You would think that's how it works. We didn't talk about Becky. So Becky Lynch is a really big deal. She was like maybe the biggest thing in wrestling, regardless of women's or men's, at one point. When she got the Man.
When she got punched in the face?
After that, like after she built up after that, she was in a triple threat match for the undisputed women's champion. So it was like for both belts, and she actually won that. So she was like she had both belts at one point. And then she lost one of them quickly because they wanted not to have. They didn't want to do the thing with Roman Reigns in the women's division where they just like only have one champion for a really long time.
Yeah, yeah.
But she was the champion for a long time, and then she eventually had to forfeit it because she got pregnant. And then in the last year and a half, I guess, she's been back from that.
Okay.
But she's a big deal. Like everybody has a huge reaction whenever she enters, and she's recently gone back to being a face, which is why she's facing Bayley now, because Bayley's a heel.
Right.
She's one of the potential Royal Rumble winners as well, I would say. Okay. Bayley could be too, but I think that's just wishful thinking on my part because I really like Bayley. But yeah, what happens here? This is a continuation of not a good night for women's wrestling here.
Yes. So they get in the cage, but then Bayley's friends get in the cage too, and they like put a chain on the door so the refs, the ref is yelling at them to get out because they're not allowed to be there. But they chain it up, and then basically her minions just like all three of them team up on Becky and they beat her real fast because it's three of them.
Well, the match never starts.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. They're just like beating up Becky with all three of them.
It's extracurricular smashing. It's not the official smashing.
Did I tell you the names of Bayley's two lackey people?
I don't think so.
Her lackey people aren't really lackeys because they're actually the women's tag champions. So like, they're also serious, but like they're just not like Bayley's the leader of this group. Mm-hmm. Their names are Dakota Kai and Io Sky, which I always confuse because they rhyme. I always have to like remind myself, even though they look totally different. I just have to remind myself which one's which when I think about it. So yeah, basically, they lock themselves in with chains, and then Adam Pearce has to come out again, the general manager guy, and he has to use like bolt cutters to like undo the cage. But by the time they get in, like they've already like Becky's like not in a state to even do the match anymore, and Damage Control just like climbs over to the top of the cage and celebrates, and then they walk out.
Yep.
Yeah. My point of note here though was that they were all like sitting on top of the cage celebrating, and then they all three of them like climbed down the side of the cage. Bayley and Io like did the normal like kind of safe get down. Dakota Kai like got down that cage so fast.
Oh, really?
Like whenever people do these matches, like they always milk the climbing because like to create the tension.
Yeah.
And Bayley and Io kind of did like the normal way you climbed, and then but because it didn't really matter, I guess Dakota just like actually like she's good at climbing cages, and just like she got down so fast from what you're used to seeing when people climb cages.
But yeah, so that's it. We did not get the real cage match.
This was disappointing because this was like, once I read the rumors, I think I realized that, okay, this cage match isn't going to be the main event. But I thought we would still get a good match out of it. But a cage match between Bayley and Becky Lynch should be the main event of Monday Night Raw.
Okay.
And I think like the first ever steel cage match for women. I don't know how many steel cage matches there have been for women. This might be one, maybe this might actually be the second. I don't know the history. But the first ever steel cage match for women was also the main event. So it would have been nice that this one would have been the main event. But because of how the WWE uses Brock Lesnar, which we'll get to at the end.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar kind of gets this like special treatment that, if he's going to be involved, he most likely is going to be involved in the main event segment. And like he's either always in the main event segment, and if for whatever reason like they're just like, we can't put you in the main event, like the other stuff going on is more important, he'll be like in the first segment of the show because so that like he can just do his part and then he can like go home. I think it's the idea. So he doesn't have to like sit around for the whole show.
He only opens or closes. That's it.
I don't know if it's strictly that, but that's how I feel whenever Brock Lesnar. So Brock Lesnar had a very Brock Lesnar appearance, and he was literally in the last 2 minutes of the show. Which was unfortunate for this cage match. Yeah. But also, now I can't confirm if this is the case, but the guys behind us were making it seem like they were reading something online or on Twitter or something.
Yeah.
But they were saying that the Bloodline segment that opened the show ran longer than it was supposed to. And for some reason, they chose to basically make this match like they still came out to the cage, but they didn't have the match. So they basically scratched the match from the night, which is very like classic women's wrestling, like from back in the day, where like oh, if you need more time on the show, you just tell the women like, oh, you only have 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes to do your match, and then they just do like a really crappy match. Like that's like very classic.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but it's possible that they said to Bailey and Becky like, "Oh, you can do your match, but you got to make it like 5 minutes." And then they were like, "I don't want to do that." Like they might have been like, "If we're gonna have a match, we want to do a good match." So they just said, we just won't have the match. We'll just do this instead."
Okay.
Like it could have been some sort of agreement, Bailey and Becky will both be in the Rumble. I don't know if this feud between them is something that was supposed to last, or this was just supposed to be a one-off good match that was supposed to happen. I don't know if they'll cycle back to it or not, but it was disappointing. It was something I was looking forward to. I do enjoy Bailey when she wrestles as well, but I think the best Bailey for me is just like when she's on the mic, and then we still got to see like her entrance and her yelling at people.
Yeah.
At least you probably didn't get to see it on TV as much. I'm assuming it went to commercial, but I still got like a good dose of Bailey live, even though
she called a lot of people idiots. She booed children. Yeah. It was good.
It was funny. Yeah. Okay. You ready for the next segment, Sarah? Do you want to attempt to describe this next segment?
So next, I want to say 5 kind of old dudes come out, and there's a bunch of fireworks, and
they're old dudes. It's 100% fair to call them old dudes.
The like graphics have a lot like a big X on them or something. It all felt very, very 90s. They came out, they were doing like, that maybe this is the origin of it. I don't know. I just remember it being a thing back in the 90s where there was that like suck it sort of gesture that people would do,
But I don't know if they got it from the culture or they created the culture. Like they might have started doing that and then people, like they're copying. The group is called DX. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was unfamiliar with all of these old boys, but I felt like they were from the 90s. Yeah. And they were all very excited about doing their, hey, remember us? But one of them didn't belong or something and was like just snuck on with them. Yeah. Which I was a little confused about.
Yeah. So when these guys came out, I was ready for this to be another Nothing Legend segment, and that's what it really was like shaping up to be until some stuff happened. So DX is a faction that existed, I'm assuming, in the 90s, like you saying. Mm-hmm. The two guys, Triple H, you said you've heard of him before.
Yes.
He's married to Vince McMahon, who is like the owner of WWE. He's married to Vince McMahon's daughter, and now he's he's part of the creative team. And a lot of the fans actually like what he does when it comes to the creative writing on the show.
Okay.
And then the other guy, I think, who was probably wearing a cowboy hat.
Oh, yeah, I remember something like that.
His name is Shawn Michaels. He's a WWE Hall of Famer. Actually, all these guys are WWE Hall of Famers because they got into the Hall of Fame as a group, but like Shawn Michaels and Triple H, like as individuals, are Hall of Famers. Those are the two guys I know. I actually could not tell you the two other guys that are in DX. I don't know their names. Like that's I Triple H and Shawn Michaels wrestled towards the end of their careers when I was watching. The other two guys, I did not watch them wrestle. I've seen them multiple times because DX will always come back for any like nostalgic episode that they're trying to do. But this fifth guy is Kurt Angle, who is he's actually like pretty sure he's like an Olympic gold medalist in amateur wrestling.
Okay.
And then he went to the WWE afterwards, and he's a WWE Hall of Famer as well as like a singles competitor. So it was kind of weird. It was like, okay, why is Kurt Angle out with DX? But then it was good that they just combined their segments into one. And they basically, DX just has like a bunch of like slogans that they say. And then eventually they say, I got 2 words for you. And then they say, suck it. And the whole crowd says, suck it. And then that's like their whole thing.
Yes.
And that's what it felt like it was going to be. And I was like, okay, let's get this over with.
But then some German Speedo models who were very upset about the crassness of this event came out and went, stop being gross. Wrestling is better than this or something. Yeah. And then wanted to fight the old men.
Yeah, they were like, I got 2 words for you, and they were about to say suck it, but then they got interrupted by this faction called Imperium, which you could describe them as German guys, but they're actually, it's the leader of Imperium is named Gunther, and he's from Austria.
Okay.
And then the one guy's named Ludwig Kaiser.
Uh-huh.
And he's from Germany.
Okay.
And then the other guy is Giovanni Vinci.
Oh,
He's from Italy.
okay. European Speedo models. I
Yes.
changed my notes.
I knew who Gunther was. He's actually the Intercontinental Champion, which is one of the like B level titles that the men's division has.
Hmm.
I did not know the names of the other two guys because they're usually on SmackDown. So I was aware of Gunther, but I did not know the names of his two Imperium boys. So they come out and interrupt it, and they do exactly what you said. Like they're like, "What is this '90s bullshit?"
We're
like
better than this now.
yeah, the wrestling is better now. Why don't one of you why don't one of you like just fight me right now? And this is when the segments start getting good. It actually started getting funny because Triple H like steps forward, like he's like gonna challenge Gunther to a match, and they do like the face to face, nose to nose like moment, and then Triple H just quickly after that steps back. He's like, "Well, I'm retired, so I can't fight you."
Yeah, they all take turns then giving like old dude excuses. Just
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Nope, can't do it.
There's like one guy was like, "Oh yeah, I got some major shin splints right now." And this is okay. I was like, okay, if you're gonna have legends on, like at least have them making fun of themselves.
Yeah.
Like this is they're playing off of the the tropey wrestling moments where people are super serious. Like this is the kind of stuff that I do enjoy, even though I didn't know half the people in DX.
Yeah.
Like they were actually still funny once they started like making fun of their old age and being like, well, I can't fight you. And then this was just a long ass setup for what is going to be a 6-man tag match, which is a 3 versus 3, where they're like, oh, I wonder who could face you if none of us can face you. Seth Rollins comes out, Sarah, who I maybe explained to you, but it's hard to. He's a big deal.
He's a tall boy with long hair, and I want to say a lot of eyeliner is just my
Seth
mental
Rollins?
image of him.
Does he have
maybe
eyeliner?
not a lot of eyeliner? I don't know.
He recently started like re-dyeing his hair blonde, which was like a thing that he did at one point in his career.
Oh,
but what about his Seth Rollins entrance though? His entrance is a big deal with the chanting.
Oh yeah. There's like some sort of song that he conducts, the people going ooh or whatever.
Yeah, but the crowd gets so into it. It's hard not to chant along. What I wanted to say about this, I know one person that's going to listen to this podcast will appreciate this reference, even though nobody that listens to the Seth Rollins chant might think of this. It might just only be me. But whenever I hear the Seth Rollins chant, if anybody who's watched Avatar: The Last Airbender and is familiar with like the soundtrack, one of like the go-to songs in the soundtrack for that show, I feel like has the same kind of chant to it as the Seth Rollins entrance chant.
Okay.
Which is like, I'm pretty sure, at least in my head, this is the Avatar Last Airbender chant. It goes, oh, whoa, like that. And it's like really close to the Seth Rollins chant in a way that like I always start going into the Avatar chant when I'm doing the Seth Rollins chant.
So you're saying he's an airbender. We've got spooky swamp wizards and now an airbender. Okay, got it.
Seth Rollins is a big deal though, Sarah. He's like, I would say like he is Roman Reigns like caliber in terms of like popularity and like respect, but
just without the belts.
Yeah, he doesn't have the belts, and him and Roman Reigns have a history where they used to be part of the same faction, and they've kind of like kept them separated because they don't want them to have to like beat each other, I think. But Roman Reigns had the title for so long that like Seth Rollins is like, he was going after the US title, and now he's having a segment with Gunther, so he's probably going to be going for the Intercontinental title next or something. So he's been like kind of put down into this the B level title area because Roman Reigns has both titles basically. So but he's a big deal, and he's actually married to Becky Lynch.
Oh, okay.
In real life. And then the tag team. Do you want to describe this tag team that comes out?
They're dressed up in basketball clothes.
Basketball, yeah.
Yeah, that's about all I know about.
Did you not
boys.
remember their name though? They have a great tag team name.
No, I do not remember their name.
The tag team name is the Street Profits.
Oh, right.
And they have the one guy carries around a red Solo cup, and then where they enter, they have red Solo cups shot out of like air cannons and rain from the sky. Did you see? Did you not notice that?
I did not see
You
that at
didn't notice the
all.
red Solo. So I guess yeah. When you're watching on TV, they also have like a graphics in the background of the red Solo cups, so it looks like there's like a lot of red Solo cups. But when you're there live, it's actually not that many that are hitting the ground. There's not many real Solo cups there.
Yeah.
It's just like the graphic makes it look like there's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They're another like face tag team that everybody likes, so they're gonna team up with Seth Rollins, who also everybody likes, against these guys that were ruining the DX moment, and everybody likes DX. So this is like going in one direction here.
Yeah,
The faces are getting all the momentum here. And then Kurt Angle, for whatever reason, is going to be the special guest referee for this match, which is also totally unfair.
Yes.
When you really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty good match. You got what do you have anything for this match? I think you
Yeah, what would you call them? The Street Profits did some cool high jumpy things. Like they both kind of jumped over the top.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
They seem to do some cool air stuff.
Yeah. Montez Ford on the Street Profits, he looks like he's a slimmer guy looks like he's more in shape. He's always been like crazy athletic. And then Dawkins has gotten into shape recently. And he actually like dove over the top rope this time too. So yeah, it was a good match. Some stuff that you wouldn't have caught, Sarah, is that like the good guys like Seth Rollins and the Street Profits like were doing Kurt Angle's like moves throughout the match in a way that it was like getting a reaction from the fans. But
I see.
Like if you're
there's no way.
There's no way you would know. So even without knowing that, it was still a good match. But there was like an additional layer that like made the match kind of cool and nostalgic to watch, I guess. And the good guys end up winning. Of course. In this very for the fans kind of segment. I don't know if this might snowball into Seth Rollins facing Gunther for the Intercontinental title. It's kind of weird because Gunther is on SmackDown usually, so this was another like they brought him over from SmackDown for the Raw segment. WWE isn't totally locked into like, oh, you're on this show and you're on this show anymore, so they do crossover. But Rollins is usually on Raw and Gunther's on SmackDown, but we'll see. This is their first interaction that I know of, so it could just be the start of a feud, or it might just be a one-off match. I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right. What's next, Sarah?
Next is the Woo guy came out.
Okay, yeah. Ric Flair did come out on live TV. Some of the other legends I think were only seen by us.
But he specifically was introducing his daughter, right? That's who she was?
Ric Flair, yeah. He came out, gave some sort of old guy speech, and then he introduced his daughter, Charlotte Flair, who is currently the SmackDown Women's Champion.
Yes, and then she talked a while about how she's the best.
Yes.
And then another lady, whose name I can't remember, but has a very long braid and seemed cool.
She has a very long one braid hair. That goes down like to her knees, at least.
Yeah.
Bianca Belair.
Oh, there you go. She came out and then she talked about how, no, but I'm the best. Because I think she's
the Raw Women's Champion.
Yeah.
Charlotte was trying to be like, oh, this is Raw will always be my show, because like that's where she won a lot of her first titles was on Raw. Mm-hmm. So that triggered Bianca to come out and be like, well, it's my show now. Like kind of like, it's funny because they're both good guys, so they're like not actually like, usually this would trigger to them like having a feud because they're like, like marking their territory or whatever, but they're both good guys, so they were like kind of like respecting each other's words in a way that like was weird. Yeah, this is the last women's segments of the night. It was very poorly written, I think, this whole segment.
I think it also like it was the moment I started to get sleepy, just the time of the night, so like I feel like maybe I'm not the only one, you know, like
nobody
this is the
stood
point
up
where you get sleepy.
People stood up for the entrances, but once they got to the ring, like there was no standing up for any of the remainder of the segment. Because then
there's a third woman who comes out and says that no, but what about me? I am the best.
Yes, essentially, yeah. Yeah, this is Sonya Deville. What's so weird about this segment, Sarah, is that Sonya Deville is in a feud with Charlotte on SmackDown.
Okay.
Is probably going to face Charlotte for her title at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yes.
But then what they decide to do in this segment is like Charlotte's like, oh, if you want to face somebody, why don't you just face Bianca and not me?
Yeah.
So Sonya, like for no reason essentially, is going to face Bianca Belair
Mm-hmm.
and just like get beaten by like like she's
Yeah.
supposed to be challenging for the Raw Women's Championship, but she's supposed to be challenging for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So they put her in a match against the Raw champion only to lose, which is like
Does not really help her.
it's just bad booking. Like it's just bad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that like, you know, the apex of this show or the climax of the show was like in the first 45 minutes. So
Yeah.
every like people were so high energy in the beginning that by the time you got to this, like people were kind of like waiting for a segment where they could like go to the bathroom or just like take a break and like chill out. And honestly, like for what they threw out here, this was just the perfect segment to do that, which again is very like classic old school wrestling. Like, oh, it's a women's match. This is when I can go get food or use the bathroom kind of like moment. And this is when like the fans were so uninterested in the match that
they started doing the Eagles chant.
They started doing Eagles chants. Yeah. And that's like it's kind of like a thing that fans do. It's like kind of disrespectful to the wrestlers.
Oh yeah.
In a way that you're like not even trying to participate because like the fans are kind of part of the show when you go to a wrestling event. So you're kind of supposed to help sell the match to some degree.
People were not feeling it.
It's not the fans' fault. Like this was a bad segment. Like there's no way around it. Like Sonya looks bad after this segment, and then she's gonna face Charlotte, and then that match is gonna probably be bad because nobody expects Sonya to win, and she probably won't. So that match will also not be interesting. And then there's no really downside to Bianca here because she does win this match, but she has to go through this match where the crowd is not interested, which is not fun, you know?
Yeah. So they really just should have cut this out and let the cage match be the cage match.
Yeah. Charlotte is very good in the ring. She's like the most winningest women's champion of all time. She was gone for a long time. She came back recently, and instantly, the day she came back, she got a match for the title and she won. Like that's just like the kind of character she gets to be. And Bianca is also very good in the ring. We did get to see some of her athleticism in her match, but it didn't get any huge pops because people are just kind of like weren't into the segment. But then the Alexa Bliss came on the screen after the match. I tried to explain Alexa Bliss to you also.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to try to?
Nope. Forgot everything.
Okay, Alexa Bliss is somehow like she's basically roped in with this whole like Bray Wyatt characters where she's like,
all right, she's the one that gets possessed with the ghost. Okay.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So she's like in the process of getting repossessed or something like that. So she's actually like a very small woman who looks like she shouldn't be able to beat anybody in a match. But she's been champion multiple times, but then she has this whole like Bray Wyatt kind of aura to her that like she's like maybe she's a wizard as well. Or something like that. So she has like she'll just like go nuts and in like I don't know. I'll get to my prediction for Alexa Bliss is facing Bianca Belair at the Royal Rumble for her title.
Yeah.
Which I'm not 100% sure how that will go, but I'll try to predict it later. Unfortunate for the women's wrestlers tonight, but
yeah, definitely.
I'm hoping that they'll have a bounce back. Like they'll acknowledge that, you know, they didn't do right by the women on this episode of Raw, and hopefully we'll get some sort of makeup for this later.
Yeah.
Let's move on. We get one small segment before the main event here.
Yeah, so then some like, I don't know, guy in a suit, like he looked like an announcer to me or something came in.
Okay.
And then was talking some shit about how, what about me? I'm amazing. You should all pay attention to me.
This guy got the mic. This is The Miz. The Miz was on the mic for all of like 15 seconds, and people were going nuts. Like he was just like he was like kind of being like a brat and being like, he was like, what do you mean I don't have a segment of like, he usually does a talk show called Miz TV. Like he's like, there's no episode on Miz TV on Monday Night Raw. Like that's like a staple of the Monday Night Raw history and like stuff like that. And like the crowd is like going crazy because they're like agreeing with him. Like the Miz is awesome. And then, but then the guy that's challenging Roman Reigns just like sneaks out of the audience or something. I don't even know where he came from. And then he just hits him with the stunner, which is his new finisher move. And Kevin Owens is going to go on a rant about how he's going to beat Roman Reigns.
About how he's actually the best.
Yeah. He actually had it was actually a pretty good promo because like it got kind of like oh, like this is actually what like fans say in like forums online. Like he was like, Roman Reigns, you've held the titles hostage for over 2 years now, which is like things that like people actually say about Roman Reigns online. So it got kind of like, they're using real material or like real feelings from the fans in the writing of the show, which is I like when they do that. Yeah.
It's a good call.
But unfortunately, we talked about how the tag team match earlier was like only for the Raw titles. As of right now, Owens is facing Reigns for the undisputed titles, which means it's for both of them. So there's like no way in hell that
they're gonna take both of them
Kevin Owens is gonna take both titles off Roman Reigns before WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So there is speculation that Roman could lose one of them before WrestleMania, but he's not gonna lose both. They could switch it up at the last second and be like, "Oh, this is only for the SmackDown titles, or this is only for the Raw title, or this is the Universal title, or whatever it's called." But as of right now, it doesn't seem like it's that. So, really, hopefully, it's a good match. But I don't think there's any mystery here as to who's going to win, which there rarely is in a Roman Reigns match. But since there was some speculation out there that Roman could lose the title, I think if they just said, "Oh, this is only for the Universal title," then it would actually make the match more interesting. But that's not the case. What's the main event, Sarah? You want to describe these boys?
These are two big muscly boys.
One really big muscly boy.
He reminded me a lot of like that old show American Gladiators.
Yeah.
Like he's that level of muscly, which just seems absurd. But
yeah, that's Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley to me always had like I feel like for me like, if I were to get really muscular, or when I think about if like being really muscular, like there's a point where I feel like it's like too much. But somehow like Bobby Lashley has been able to like build his muscles in a way that like I actually don't think it looks like too gross.
Even though he is massive.
He somehow has like kept the right proportions where I'm like, oh, that actually looks like some good muscles. And the other guy has gained a lot of muscle recently. But he's just like a smaller guy compared to Bobby Lashley, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a high bar.
Yeah, they're both very muscular, but there might have been like a 50-pound difference between these two guys.
Yeah.
The other guy's name is Austin Theory, and he is the United States Championship, which is the other B title in the men's division.
And these, to me, looked like serious boys who weren't going to do too many goofy things. But, I mean, I don't know. Are tables considered goofy? That just seems like standard wrestling thing.
Tables are the very go-to, like fans are always like, get the tables. Like it's like a thing that those guys that did the D3 move, they're called the Dudley Boys. They were like famous for using tables, and they would always be like, get the tables. So everybody's always like, get the tables. And it's like a thing. This was a no disqualification match, which means you're allowed to use whatever you want. So they were allowed to get tables out.
This is where I found out that there is, in fact, an arsenal of tables and chairs and a fire extinguisher just under the
whatever you need
ring all the time. Yeah,
anything you need. Usually the bolt cutters are under there, but when they had to get the bolt cutters earlier, somebody had to like run backstage and get them. Like they forgot to put them under the ring.
They couldn't get in there too quickly. Maybe
that is actually what it was. Like they've definitely had the bolt cutters under the ring before, but they didn't for this situation. Yeah. Everybody that watches wrestling just like knows that. They're just like, they keep spare supplies that there's usually ladders under there too.
But yeah, I feel like these boys spend a lot of time outside of the ring chasing each other around and smashing each other.
Yeah, that's how these no DQ matches usually go. It's like you get a lot of out of ring stuff and then you get some bonus weapons.
Yeah.
Lashley is a guy that I like. I always like kind of liked him, and then I listened to Stone Cold Steve Austin has these like podcasts, and I watched his interview with Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with him. Like he's basically like a guy that he's like willing to do whatever. Like he says like, I don't really like pitch ideas to the creative team at all. Really, like he's really just like I'll do whatever you want me to do kind of guy.
Yeah.
And so he's like, he does do like goofy segments sometimes, but he's like he naturally is just like I'm a tough big guy.
Yeah.
And he's like a good athlete. Like he also Brock Lesnar, who we're gonna talk about, was like the UFC champion at one point or MMA champion, and Bobby Lashley also did MMA fighting. And was a amateur wrestler and won like a bunch of titles in college and stuff. And Bobby Lashley was also part of a bank robbery one time.
Right, he's the one you told me about got shot sort of in the face.
He wasn't robbing the bank, but he was in the bank.
No.
Yeah. He was in the bank when it was getting robbed. This is like the short version of the story, as I understand it. And like when the guy like busted the door open to the bank, he just like randomly shot one bullet to like get everybody to like pay attention to him. And I guess he didn't shoot the bullet in the air like you would see in like a cartoon or a TV show. He like shot it. I don't know. He must have shot it like forward. And it actually like Bobby Lashley has this scar on his like left cheek, I think, that as I understand it, the bullet like grazed his cheek.
Oh my gosh.
And that is why he has this scar.
Yeah.
And in the process, he like his reaction to getting hit in the cheek and hearing this gun fired in the bank was that he just fell to the ground as fast as humanly possible.
The exact proper response.
Yes. Yeah. And it wasn't until like after the whole robbery was over that he like realized that he like fell in a way that he like busted his knee up a little bit. And he was like in the process of like being scouted for WWE, and he had to like, after this bank robbery incident, he had to like keep telling them that he had to reschedule over and over again because he needed like a few months to like heal from this injury he got.
And he didn't want to say, I busted up my knee.
Yeah, he didn't want to let them know that he was hurt. So he just like came up with excuses to like reschedule the tryout over and over again.
I would have been like, I got shot in the face. Give me a little bit of time.
You would think that would be good, but you know, big businesses move on quickly.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know if he had to do what he did, but yeah, incredible story. When I heard the story of the podcast, I was like, I couldn't even believe that anybody could have had a story like this in their life, but amazing story. Yeah. So I am a Bobby Lashley fan, even though he probably doesn't fit the character type that I usually root for, but I do enjoy rooting for Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, I have very little reason to be attached to anybody in this, but I found myself wanting him to win this match. So.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Austin Theory is a very serious boy now, but
yeah, he had a very serious face, and I was like, "You don't seem fun. I don't know that I'm into this."
This guy, Austin Theory, is like actually young. He's like 24 years old. He had a gimmick at first where he would like always be taking selfies all the time. So he would like beat somebody in a match, and then he would like grab his phone and take a selfie with them like on the mat, like behind them after he beat them.
Now that's some shilly shenanigans I can enjoy.
Yeah, I thought it was funny, but I think fans, I don't know if the fans were that into it. Like, I think he's been getting more popular now that he's like a serious boy.
Okay.
He's still new enough that I am interested by him, but you know, I feel like if he's serious for a long enough amount of time and he like stops being the champion or stops having success, I'll probably tune out on him.
Okay.
But I'm interested to see how far this United States Championship title runs, because I feel like he's gonna carry it till Mania. Like he's been retaining the title, but like it's always kind of goofy how he does, because he faces guys like Bobby Lashley who just like he looks like he shouldn't be able to beat him. So he needs a goofy thing to happen, which is what's about to happen.
Yeah, but before that, he gets out like some tables, and the amount of time like that these folks have to set up tables while somebody else is just laying on the ground pretending to be like hurt is very silly.
Yeah.
It's just very silly.
I enjoyed watching in the 3-man tag match when like one guy from each side was fighting. Like Gunther was facing Seth Rollins in the ring. Like I could see the two Imperium guys like sitting on the ground outside the ring, just like casually watching what was going on in the ring, because they knew they weren't on camera, I guess.
Yeah.
But like they're supposed to be like, oh, I got punched in the face, so I'm like recovering on the outside of the ring. But they weren't on the camera side, so they didn't have to like worry about like selling it, I guess.
And that one I also enjoyed, when one boy would be like down and like trying to tap out, but the other boys were just, oh no, just too far away. Like they couldn't move in
That's like
far enough.
That's tag team wrestling classic.
It was very silly as well.
Yeah, Theory's gonna use a fire extinguisher at some point in this match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a point where he threw Bobby like at the stairs that they have to get up into the ring. And I was like, oh no, that thing has pointy corners. Like that was the one time when I was like, oh no, I don't like this.
Yeah, I actually, the article I read on the recap to try to like get my notes together for this actually like mentioned that looked like harder than normal. Like they do that spot all the time where they throw them into like the side of the stairs. Which I think is what they did. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary when we were there, but now that you said it, and then also this person that did the article said that it looked kind of aggressive, more aggressive than normal. But they ended up setting up 2 tables, right, Sarah? They set up one like normal, like they set up,
and
normal.
One like looked like a really intense ramp on the corner.
Yeah, they like leaned it against the turnbuckle, and they had 2 set up in the ring, and they actually ended up not using one of them.
Yeah,
which was a funny thing to do, I guess. Usually I guess it created a little attention. It's like, ooh, what table are they going to use? Also, I was going to say my wife is a big fan of Austin Theory's body.
Oh, okay.
And then there was a girl, like a younger woman. I think she was 24 because her sign said she was 24, like a few rows in front of us, who got on. They did so they in the stadium during commercials, they did like a dance cam segment at one point. And then they had a sign cam segment where they were like going to people's signs and like the announcer lady was like reading them. And this woman had a sign that was like for Theory, saying that she was like single and ready to mingle, and that she was like, I think she was saying she was 24 because she's like the same age as Austin Theory or something. And then it was something about, it was essentially like if somebody had like a Theory marry me sign or something like that.
Yeah.
So there was like another girl there who was like very into Austin Theory's, which I thought was funny. But yeah, solid match overall.
And then Brock Lesnar came in like the Kool-Aid man is what I have.
Well, Lashley puts Theory through, finally power bombs Theory through the table that was standing normally. They don't use the turnbuckle table. And then right after he does this, like he could just go pin him and win the match, like right here.
Yeah.
But, here comes the Brock Lesnar music. There's literally, so we could see the clock that the wrestlers and the refs get to look at. Since it's a live show, like they kind of have to keep to their time or know, like, okay, it's 10:58. We have 2 minutes left until we go off the air.
And then like the people in front of us started filming the like entrance stage instead of like looking at the ring.
Yeah, I think Lesnar previously has already screwed over Bobby Lashley from losing the U.S. title from Austin Theory. Okay. So there was rumors that Lashley was going to do it again. There was a segment earlier in the show where they tried to make it seem like this guy MVP that Lashley was talking to backstage was going to like have potentially like he's like the manager for this guy, Omos, who's like a 7-foot tall guy. That he was like gonna interrupt the match, like so they tried to like make it seem like, oh, it might not be Brock Lesnar, but then it was just Brock Lesnar in the end. Yep. And yeah, this is classic Brock Lesnar. He literally, his entrance music comes on at like 10:58, like there's 2 minutes left in the show, and he just like makes his way down to the ring, gets in the ring, like Lashley misses the first punch, and then he picks him up onto his back and then does his finisher move. It's called the F5, where he just like spins them and drops them on the ground. And that's his finisher that, you know, people, unless it's like a WrestleMania match or a big match, like they don't really kick out of it. So Lashley is like pinnable in this moment.
So he throws the other unconscious boy on top of this boy, and that's good enough.
Yeah, he does the F5 to Austin Theory. He just like picks Theory up off the ground, does the F5 to him, except he lands him on top of Bobby Lashley so that the referee can count it as Theory is pinning Bobby Lashley.
The rules in this thing are ridiculous.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's a no DQ match. This is why it had to be a no DQ match, is because Lesnar was going to interfere. Now, I don't know how much of a change this was, because like I don't think until when we went, like I don't think last week that this was advertised as a no DQ. So I think a lot of stuff kind of changed on the fly here.
Okay.
With potentially because of maybe the Rock decision, or I don't know. Like maybe Lesnar wouldn't have shown up tonight if the Rock was going to show up, because it would be like too many big people coming back in the same night, kind of thing. But once the Rock wasn't in, maybe they're like, okay, we can use Lesnar instead, and then we'll do this trial of Sami Zayn segment. which ended up being amazing. So I don't care. I didn't mind that they did that. But yeah, Lesnar did his 2 minutes that he usually gets and as the main event, and that was the end of Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
And I think this will hopefully lead to a Lashley Lesnar WrestleMania match.
Oh,
it would make sense. Lesnar's a guy that he only shows up like every so often, and recently, whenever he does show up, it's been like to mess up Lashley. So hopefully this is a WrestleMania match that will happen, and they're like these guys won't need to have a title as part of the match.
Oh yeah, okay.
Kind of thing.
It's just a I'm angry at you match.
Yeah, Lesnar usually gets his match to be for a title, but maybe this one won't. But it's possible they might have Lesnar like take one of the titles off of Reigns.
Oh,
or like some shenanigans might happen where somehow one of the titles comes off Reigns and then it ends up in the hands of Lashley or Lesnar before WrestleMania. It's possible, but hopefully not. Hopefully we just get a non-title Lesnar match that hopefully Lashley can win and look good.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah, how are you feeling after these 3 hours?
Sleepy and ready to go home.
Hours.
It was a long time, but it was a good time.
Yeah. Would you ever go again, Sarah? We just had tickets, and we were like, Sarah, we're going to Philly for another show. Maybe,
I guess, if you really wanted me to go.
If there was a Royal Rumble in Philly, I feel like that's...
Oh, if I could see some muscly men play The Floor is Lava, then I could get into it.
Well, you'll see. We'll see if you like it on TV.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I am intrigued by the Floor is Lava action that you have told me about.
Yeah,
where
I showed Sarah some Kofi Kingston highlights over the years of the Royal Rumble of all the different ways he like did not have his 2 feet touch the floor, so he was technically still in the match, which is very silly rules.
Yeah, I think the higher chance of shenanigans, the higher chance you have of me going, like...
Yeah, well, that's how my interest has also peaked. So, I think if I'm into a segment, that's like the good stuff that I think you'll also like.
Yeah.
The trial of Sami Zayn was a really good segment, and I think you could tell it was a good segment, but you did need a little bit of background to kind of understand it.
Yeah, definitely. If you hadn't given me that whole preparatory rundown of things ahead of time, I would have been like, this is the strange situation, okay?
Yeah. They're having a Law and Order trial as the opening segment of this wrestling show. Okay, so that's enough of Monday Night Raw. We made it.
Yes.
Next, we will be covering the Royal Rumble on Saturday.
Yes. Or we talked about just one of the matches, right? Like the women's or the men's, or...
Yeah. Let me give my predictions for all these matches.
Okay.
And I'll let you know what the matches are besides the Rumble matches. So we're going to get an undisputed WWE Universal Championship match between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens.
Okay.
This should just pretty much be a straight Roman Reigns retains.
Mm-hmm.
The match could be interesting from the perspective of Roman has given Sammy this like you'll have your final test at the Rumble.
Yeah.
But it's really vague in a way like, okay, is Sammy gonna have to like is Roman gonna tell him to do something to Kevin Owens to help him retain?
Right.
Or is it gonna be something in the Rumble match itself?
Mm.
It seems like it has to be something in the championship match, because I don't know why Roman would be involved in the Rumble match.
Mm-hmm.
It could be some story throughout the night where I'm assuming the women's Rumble is going to be the opening match of the Rumble pay-per-view, and the men's match will be the main event, and then all these other singles matches are going to be like the in-between. Okay. So there could be some weird thing where like Sammy doesn't do what Reigns tells him to do, which might snowball into some shenanigans in the Rumble, and then the dream scenario is that Sami Zayn wins the Rumble. For me, that's how I feel.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That feels like the natural story progression of what Roman Reigns is building to. Now, it does feel a little odd for Roman Reigns to lose his titles to a guy in Sami Zayn that doesn't really look like he should be able to beat Roman Reigns, and he's like never won the titles before either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it
That seems
feels
very
off
silly.
from that perspective. But if WWE really wanted to, like, they call out like getting a guy over, like getting like the fans to really get behind somebody.
Oh, okay.
Now the fans are already behind Sami Zayn, but to like really get him over is to be like he's so over that he's a champion now. Is kind of like the idea,
Yeah.
and it would be like it's crazy to think that they would spend 2 years on Roman Reigns just and then give the titles to Sami Zayn. It's like it seems crazy, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
rooting for. It seems it's like I can't promise it's gonna happen, but that's like at least they're making me feel like that's a possibility, which is at least fun
Yeah,
in
yeah.
of itself.
That makes
But
sense.
Reigns should retain. He's not going to lose both titles to Kevin Owens unless something happens in this match where they change what it's for or the rules of it at the last second, which is also a possibility. The other match is the Raw Women's Championship between Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss. I don't see how Bianca loses the title. I don't think that's in the cards, but I could see this match being like a disqualification kind of ending
Oh, okay.
where like Alexa kind of like goes crazy and then maybe does something illegal to Bianca and then
okay.
she gets disqualified. It seems like sometimes these Rumble matches are like the championship matches aren't as like they're kind of like they can be like filler or just like getting through to WrestleMania kind of things. I don't know what the long-term plan is for Alexa Bliss. It feels like they're just using her as a fill-in match for Bianca here, but I don't know. There's some speculation that Bianca could lose the titles and then maybe she would like go face Charlotte or something. There's some speculation out there. So there's like a chance she might lose, but I don't see it happening.
Interesting. Okay.
And then the other singles match that's advertised is Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight in the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match.
The spooky match.
Based on the segment that we watched on Raw last night, Sarah, who do you think would win this match?
The spooky boy is going to win the match. Yes.
They literally had the Undertaker come back and like shit on LA Knight, even though LA Knight is good. He's good at what he does, but they're using him as a stepping stone for Bray Wyatt right here.
Yeah.
So he should win. Now, what the hell this match is going to be? I don't know. I don't know if WWE knows yet what it's going to be. I don't know if they made a decision. If I had to guess, it would just be like the lights periodically go off during this match, and then we might get some creepy characters that show up after when the lights come back on, and then eventually something happens. I don't know. It could be a weird like setup where I told you about this character like Uncle Howdy, who like everybody thought Bray Wyatt was Uncle Howdy, but then Uncle Howdy like attacked Bray Wyatt. So
yeah,
it's possible that this whole setup is just a setup for like Uncle Howdy to attack Bray Wyatt, and then LA Knight actually wins the match. Like that's definitely a possibility. That's what kind of happened with Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. Like Alexa Bliss, like fully transformed into like Sister Abigail and like distracted Bray Wyatt, and he actually lost his WrestleMania match. So they could actually do an angle like that. So there's a chance LA Knight does win the match.
Being overthrown by his own spookiness.
Yeah, ridiculous. Exactly. I don't get it, but you know. It should be interesting. And then, okay, you ready to talk about? We're going to talk about. I'm going to pull up the betting odds for the Royal Rumble right now and talk about them. So anybody that doesn't want betting odds spoiled information, this is the time to tap out of this podcast. All right. So let's talk about the Women's Rumble first.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw. You don't understand how the numbers of betting odds work, right, Sarah?
Correct.
For people that do, I'm just gonna spit out the numbers here. Ready? The number one favorite to win the Women's Royal Rumble is Rhea Ripley. He's at minus 138. In betting terms, that's like a 50% chance to maybe slightly above 50% chance that they'll win the match, approximately.
And this was a hot goth girl?
Yes. This is the girl you liked. Well, no, not Bailey, but the one you thought looked nice.
Yeah.
This would make a lot of sense. This I think follows the formula oftentimes for a Royal Rumble winner, where like they're on TV, but Rhea is not actually. She used to be like kind of a singles high profile wrestler, like she was the champion at one point, but then she kind of like became kind of like B level, like other people started going for the titles and she was getting less time on TV, and then she joined this faction called the Judgment Day, and she's kind of taken a back seat on the Judgment Day where she helps them win their matches. But she's had segments throughout the way where like she's like body slammed dudes
Mm,
and
yeah.
gotten like big spots. So it's like they've kept her relevant enough. And if somebody's gonna win the Rumble at the end of the season or whatever you want to call this, it makes sense that like, okay, you don't necessarily have to use them too much throughout the year if they're just gonna win
Oh,
the
okay.
Rumble, and then you can hype them up for the last 2 month stretch of the season or
Oh,
whatever.
okay. I see.
So it kind of fits that formula where like they've made her look cool, but they haven't overused her too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the betting odds here for why she's a favorite. But
Yeah,
still,
yeah,
the betting odds, like if you think Rhea Ripley's going to win for sure, then it would be in your best interest to go out and bet money that Rhea Ripley's going to win, because
yeah. Mm-hmm.
if you think there's a 60% chance that she wins, like it's in your best interest to bet it. That's like how the math works out.
Okay.
The second highest in the betting odds is Becky Lynch, who was the girl that got beat up by Damage Control in the cage match.
Ah, yes. Yes. Okay.
Her odds are at plus 350. That's probably around like a 20% chance, I would
Okay.
say, that she wins. And that's the second highest odds of winning. Becky is one of those people that's kind of like, she's such a big deal that she's kind of just like default is always going to be kind of high on the odds to win.
Okay.
She's won it before, but like having her win it multiple times like wouldn't be that weird because she's big enough of a deal.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And then after that, it's like everybody else is below 10%.
Oh,
Like well
okay.
below 10%. So
Yeah.
Bailey is next after that. And then Raquel Rodriguez, which is another like muscular woman on SmackDown that I don't get to watch that often, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like a newer person. And then I'll just go through these like Asuka, Charlotte Flair, Naomi is on this list, but I don't know. At some point, it just kind of gets like they're throwing these odds up because they think somebody might bet them, but
Yeah. Not really
I wouldn't
any
expect
reason
anybody.
to. Yeah.
Like, it seems like it should be Rhea or Becky with like an outside chance of Bailey, but I don't think they do that either. Or there's something they could always do something weird where like Bianca loses the title somehow, but then she wins the Rumble or something. Like they can do weird stuff like
Okay.
that too in the same night.
Yeah.
But Bianca has also won the Rumble before, so she's not high on these odds lists. So I think the women's Rumble is less interesting going into it just because it doesn't feel there's that as many possibilities as the men's
Right.
Rumble.
Okay.
But they could surprise us. It's not impossible.
Mm-hmm. I hope they do a good job for the ladies, given that they did not do a good job for the ladies last night.
The way that the Rumble match works is, for people that don't know, is like it's two people start out in the ring, and then every like 90 seconds, another wrestler comes out and they enter the match. And then it keeps going until all 30 participants in the match have entered. And the objective over the course of the match is to throw people over the top rope and have both their feet hit the floor, and then they're eliminated from the match. And it goes until one person is left standing. So, like, I guess they could, like, they don't have to use a real 90 seconds for the clock if they do want to, like, speed it up. But the rules for the men's and the women's match are supposed to be the same. So they can't really
Okay.
shorten the match. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
So it should be the same length. If anything, sometimes, like, if there's supposed to be a moment in the middle of the match, they might use more than 90 seconds in between.
Okay.
If like they don't want to interrupt us like a move in the match with an entrance person coming in. They kind of like
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
how they book the story of the match. They don't want to do that. So they can play with the clock a little bit, but it should be equivalent in length to the men's match. All right, you ready for the men's Rumble talk?
Yes.
This is when it gets good. This is the story, the interesting road to WrestleMania start right here. Like we talked about earlier, there was speculation that The Rock would be the match for Roman Reigns at WrestleMania this year.
Right.
The Rock is not the favorite, but he's
on the list.
he is on the list. I'll go through the top of the list. I'll go in the order that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Minus 137. So this is about the same odd. This is like pretty much the same odds that Ripley was at. 50%, maybe a little bit above. Is Cody Rhodes. I tried to explain Cody Rhodes to you.
Oh, right. He's the one that looks like an 80s movie villain who also runs a circus. Got it. Yes.
Yeah.
He's got a circus coat on. I don't know, man.
Yeah. For people that might be jumping in, some people, WWE fans, just kind of like try to jump in for the road to WrestleMania season.
Mm-hmm.
Cody Rhodes, he's the son of a Dusty Rhodes, who's like an old school wrestler. And so he's like a legacy guy. And he was in WWE. and then decided to leave. And then he did really well for himself in the independent circuit, and he like wrestled in Japan. And then he was part of a group of guys that started AEW, which is the like new in the last couple years, like United States based wrestling promotion that is like actually able to compete with WWE in some degree.
Okay.
But then after 2 years with AEW or whatever it was, his contract with them expired, and then he got signed back to WWE, and he made a surprise in quotes, but everybody kind of knew the behind the scene what was going on. A surprise appearance at WrestleMania, the last WrestleMania, and so he was kind of like, he wasn't that big on the like top end of the card when he left, but because he did so well for himself outside of WWE, he instantly was like top of the card when he came back.
Yeah.
And then he faced Seth Rollins, who's another big wrestler, in a bunch of matches. And then they were finally having, I thought this was going to be like their last match, like winner take all kind of match or whatever. And they had a Hell in a Cell match. But then like that week leading up to the match, Cody Rhodes in training like fully tore his like pectoral muscle off of the bone.
Oh,
and yeah, I showed you this video.
Yeah.
And then because it was so close to the match, and he just was like determined to do it no matter what, he like did the match with this injury, and
ridiculous.
Like people knew he was injured, but they didn't know the extent of it. And when he came out and he like took his coat off, like his whole right pec and like going into his arm and his bicep were like bloodshot. Like it looked like brutal. But somehow he was able to do the match at some capacity, and he ended up winning. They actually let him win, knowing that he was going to be out for like, they say 9 months, but I don't know if that was the real diagnosis. WWE likes to say like, oh, he's going to be out for a year, and then they come back in 6 months and be like, our guys are so tough that they recover faster. Now Cody's putting in a ton of work to try to come back as fast as possible, so it's possible they said 9 months, and then he just like goes above and beyond somehow. But they've been showing video packages, and you got to see one at the live event tonight.
Oh yeah.
That they're basically saying, they already said like, oh, he's going to be in the Rumble for some reason. But this is weird. So he's favorited to win, but he's not going to be a surprise entry, which is weird.
Okay.
To me, like I would not bet Cody Rhodes at -137 if I had to bet on anything here. That just doesn't feel right to me. Now, the guy who won last year, Edge, he had a similar kind of like they said like he told everybody he was going to be in the Rumble, and then he entered number 1, and then he went on to win from being even though he was the guy in the beginning of the match.
Oh dang!
I am predicting that Cody Rhodes is either the first or second guy in the match. That's what I think they're going to try to mirror the Edge thing, but I don't think he's going to win. At least that's how I feel.
Okay,
that's what I'm hoping for. Cody Rhodes is a big enough guy. He doesn't need to win the Royal Rumble. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
He can get a WrestleMania match that's going to be good without winning the Royal Rumble. It's kind of like the easiest thing they could do is just be like, oh, let's give it to this guy. He's coming back from an injury. Kind of thing. And he was a big deal. He was probably going to have an amazing year, and who knows what they had planned for him story-wise, that maybe they can just instantly get him right back to the top by having him win the Rumble. So it makes sense. I get why he's the favorite. But to me, it's just too weird that they didn't save it to be a surprise comeback. But then, right now, the second on the list, Sarah, is Sami Zayn.
Oh, boy.
Sami Zayn and The Rock have gone back and forth as to who's like the number 2.
Interesting.
But Sami Zayn is at a +300. So this is again in that like Becky Lynch zone of like 20. It's a little bit better than Becky Lynch's odds, but it's like 20% to 25% kind of area.
Got it.
This is what I would want to bet on. Maybe my heart's just too in it, so I really shouldn't be betting on it. This just feels so right to me to have Sami Zayn win this. That's what I want to happen. This is what I'm predicting will happen.
Yes, with my very little connection to anything, I would want him to win.
Yeah.
When
you come over, you're going to be rooting for Sami Zayn, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if The Rock shows up, The Rock shows up, and that's going to be cool. And then I get it if The Rock wins,
Yeah.
Reports, now these reports could be wrong. The reports are saying that The Rock decided that he didn't have enough time to get into wrestling shape for WrestleMania. So the reports are indicating that The Rock is not going to get involved. But that could just be a fake story
Yeah.
because he's gonna come out at the Rumble and it's gonna be a surprise. And maybe that's why they didn't want Cody to be a surprise entry and The Rock to be a surprise entry because they didn't want
too many surprises.
Yeah, like they've done these really good video packages, like documentary style of like Cody recovering from his injury and getting the sympathy of the fans and showing how tough he is and how hardworking he is. So they've gotten to show Cody in a very positive way.
Yeah.
To get him on good terms with the fans again and not have him be overshadowed by The Rock if The Rock does come out.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But I'm assuming The Rock is not going to get involved, and I hope it's Sammy. And what I really hope is that Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, and The Rock. The Rock is at plus 450 right now. So you're talking under 20% at this point. Still like above 15%, so it's like that 15 to 20 range. If they're all in the match, say somehow The Rock is there, I hope like Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, and The Rock are like the final three in the match. Like the tension of like, oh my god, who's gonna win this would be so electric to be like it would make sense for all three of these guys to win. Like a dream scenario to me is like The Rock is in the match, right? But somehow Sami Zayn eliminates The Rock from the match. Like
that
just
sounds so absurd.
Throws like Sami Zayn just goes like Super Saiyan instantly. And like he would be so over. And like you would think people would it's an interesting spot because like you would think like, oh, people would boo The Rock getting eliminated. But if Sami Zayn eliminates The Rock,
yeah, that would be
like
everybody
I think people
would go crazy,
lose their
right?
shit.
Like,
yeah, it would be absurd. I think the crowd would love it. That's what I think.
But say you're The Rock, do you come back to lose to Sami Zayn? Like, would you agree to that? Like,
The Rock is an old legend. Like, he's theoretically like he stays in shape, but I guess he's not in shape enough to wrestle, according to reports. Like, he's still an old legend guy. Like, he should be like willing to like put guys over. Is the idea? Like, that's part of.
I guess that's the part of the culture that I'm missing.
That's part of the business. Is like you get built up, you like have your run, and then before nobody cares about you, you kind of hand off and you try to help the next generation or whatever.
See, I would be like, I won, goodbye forever, I'm never coming back. You can never see me lose again.
Yeah. The Rock is still awesome enough that like nobody would be mad if he came back and beat Roman Reigns. Or like he could come back and beat anybody, I think. And people would be like, oh, it's The Rock, it's still awesome. Whereas like some other old guys coming back to win, you'd be like, like I like you, but we don't want you like taking away from the current superstars to be here. Yeah. Everybody else is plus 2,000 or lower, which is now you're talking less than 5%.
Oh, okay.
Everybody else, except up until like today, for some reason, Stone Cold Steve Austin on this odds list has gone up to plus 800. So he's fourth.
It's a weird mix.
I don't know if this means anything. I feel like it doesn't. Maybe some rumor got leaked that Stone Cold was in play, and then the betting odds were just like, to be safe, we should better lower Stone Cold's odds. Like, he might have been like plus 4,000 before, and they were just like, well, it's too risky to let people bet Stone Cold at plus 4,000, so they switched it to 800. I don't know what happened, but I'm not reading into the Stone Cold odds going up. Plus 800 is like, you're about 10%. I guess would be your odds at plus 800. But I think it's Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, and The Rock are the main guys to be waiting for when each wrestler comes in.
Sounds like it's gonna be a lot of shenanigans.
I hope so. Sami Zayn all the way. Are you gonna be rooting for Rhea Ripley or Bayley? Or I'll be rooting for Bayley, but not expecting her to win. That's how in the women's match.
Yeah, I think I would like it if Bayley won. I like her booing children apparently. The other lady, I'm just like, she looks cool. I have nothing else to go on.
You got to see so little of the women's division, though, so far that I feel like there still might be a random woman that enters and you'd be like, oh, I think she's funny or he looks cool or whatever. Like, you're going to have 30 attempts.
We'll see who sparks joy on the night. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. That's my prediction. I'm predicting Sami Zayn and Rhea Ripley. Those are my official predictions.
Yeah, we'll say if, like, Sammy wins, then I will be interested, if not watching, but hearing a follow-up to that, because then he's got to go fight the dude, right? That's how this works.
Come over and watch WrestleMania. That'd be amazing. If you got interested enough to be like, yeah, I'll come over and watch WrestleMania. Why not?
We'll see. We'll see.
It's just a silly thing to come and watch together.
Yeah. That's far less of a commitment than going to a thing. So yeah.
I've gone to like random like friends of friends' houses to watch Royal Rumbles and WrestleManias before.
Yeah. But if like the 80s villain circus conductor guy wins, that's less like I don't care where that
There's
goes.
no yeah. I tried to run you through his story to like it is a really good story in terms of like leaving. He basically like bet on himself. He left like WWE is kind of like still the even though there are other promos that are like competing with WWE now, WWE is still the top company to be in, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe in terms of like making money or I don't know exactly. But this is where he wants to be. Like this is where his family legacy is. But he left because he felt like he wasn't high enough on the card, basically. He bet on himself, did amazing by himself in the independent circuit, and then helped create like a new company and then just use that all just to get back in the WWE and go right to the top of the card. Like it's pretty incredible.
Which is all very impressive, but I need some weird shenanigans to motivate me to watch more.
Yeah.
And that's just very inspiring, not so much shenanigans.
I don't know, maybe if he does win, maybe you'll be like, oh, this guy is pretty cool. Once you actually get to see him, but
I mean, we'll
unlikely,
see.
But we'll see. Okay, that was fun.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how we plan to do the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
It's going to be different than this. I don't want to just do another recap.
Yeah.
This is the idea I pitched to you right before we got on this podcast. I think what I want to do is choose one of the Rumble matches. Most likely the men's one, just because I expect it to be the better of the two this year. And what we'll do is we'll watch it live and just enjoy it at my house. But then when we do the podcast, we'll probably record the next day. And what we'll do is we'll watch the replay of the men's Royal Rumble match live on the podcast. What I want to do is have Sarah do the main commentary for the entire match.
Get ready for some weird nicknames for some people, because I don't know anybody.
She might remember the names of some people, but there's going to be people I've never told her about and she's never seen before. And so she's going to have to... It's a podcast, so people are expected to only be listening, but people could... We want to do it so like we are doing like live commentary, so people could go sync up our audio with the video of the Rumble and watch it with our commentary if they want to.
Or you could just listen to it and try to figure out who the crap I'm talking about based on my weird descriptions.
I think it'll be the funniest way to do it. To just have you be like, and a cannonball with legs is coming down the ramp.
Yes.
And I'm gonna try. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to be the color commentator. I think I'm gonna try to be like funny and just like act like you're doing a great job.
Even though I will clearly not be.
Like, if you're like, you'll come down to the ring and you'll be like, here comes a cannonball with legs, and I'll be like, that's absolutely right, Sarah. That is Bronson Reed or whatever his name is. Like, I'll just
come in with
like,
the useful information.
I'll give you useful information, but in a way that like I'll be supporting you as if you're doing a great job.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna go into I'm not gonna like do any like tangents explaining things
because you won't have time.
Unless I could somehow, I don't know. The thing is, we're gonna have already watched it. I want to try to announce it as if we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So it's like it feels like it's live commentary, but maybe we might be able to like plan out a couple spots of what to say in certain spots.
I mean, I think that's fair. The actual commentary guys have a script, so
yeah, they do too. Yeah, that's fair. So I think it will just be a funny thing, and then will pretty much be, the match might be an hour. It's like an hour, a little over an hour probably for the whole match. So it'll actually be like some time constraint on the podcast because we'll do an intro and an outro, but you know, the podcast can only be so long because it's only going to be the length of the match.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think that will be fun. It'll be fun for us. Or fun for me.
It'll be fun for other people.
It'll be fun for me listening to you try to get through commentating on something you've never seen before.
I will try my best.
Fun. So we'll do that. We'll try to record that on Sunday after the Rumble and then get that out as soon as we can. Yeah. And then
Cool.
that's all we got for covering WWE. Getting
Yeah.
Sarah to watch WWE events. This worked out perfectly with Raw being in Philly right before the Rumble, and then watching the Rumble. I think it worked out really good for.
Yeah, definitely.
If I'm gonna make you watch anything, this was a good 2 shows to have you watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
If anybody made it to the end of this podcast, Sarah, do you want to mention our other content or what we're doing after WWE content? What do you want to do?
Yeah, normally we watch the first episode or 2 or sometimes 3 of a show and talk about it and see if it's worth it to continue it. We just finished up watching all of Singles Inferno season 2, and I think after this we're gonna watch another Korean reality dating show called Transit Love. That's right, Transit Love.
Transit Love 2. We're gonna
2.
Yeah, we're just gonna go right to the second season for reasons that I don't really know, but people recommended it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the better season.
I guess. Yeah, I don't actually know. Might be an opinion. That might just be somebody's opinion, but I'm not sure.
But we are always open to suggestions. So if anybody's got a feeling about something we should watch, I mean, it won't be all of wrestling forever because I can't handle that. But we're open to suggestions.
Yeah, there's an outside chance. I mean, if you get invested enough to watch the WrestleMania at my house, who knows what we can do? I think this will probably be the last WWE content we do for a while. Although yeah. I think like commentating on the Rumble could be like a fun thing to do every year if it turns out good. I don't know. We'll have to see.
If we keep doing it, I'll learn who people are, and my comedic value will be gone.
If you only watch once a year, you're not really. I don't think you'll remember, and
that's fair.
And they'll just be new people. You'll be like, "Ooh, who the hell is this? I've never seen this person before."
Fair. I gave myself too much credit there. You're right. Oh, and if people want to contact us, you can email us at keepwatchingpod@gmail.com, tweet at us at keepwatchingpod, Instagram at us at keepwatchingpod, or leave a comment on our video on YouTube also at keepwatchingpod. And if I don't have a good wrestling related comment for this, but if you had a good time with this, we would appreciate it if you go leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Oh, yeah. This was fun, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a good time.
All right.
I was nervous about it at first, but it was good.
I was only nervous about you not enjoying this at all.
I was only nervous about the Swamp Wizard, so.
To me, wrestling it's just a silly time. And you can be as into, like, I'm not into every segment, of wrestling. I'm just in it. I turn it on if it's a segment that I know I don't have to watch. I don't watch it. If it's a segment I think I might like, I watch it. Like, I don't. Yeah. You don't watch the whole thing. It's not like a normal TV show where you have to watch every second. So it's just a fun, silly time. That's how I go about it.
Yeah.
But okay, are we done?
I think that's it.
Alrighty. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Bye.